Okay, 6 o'clock. Okay. Good evening, it's 6 o'clock. And so with that, let's start with our meeting tonight. So let's see. As I see, everybody is here tonight, so we're gonna start with the announcement from the translator. Thank you for being here.
Yes, hello everyone, good evening. The Zoom interpretation feature will be used in this meeting for English and Spanish support. All participants on this call must select their language of preference by clicking the language. When the host turns on the interpretation feature, this is found in the world icon located on your feature panel. Interpretation for this meeting will be conducted simultaneously. Thank you for your attention and collaboration. Buenas noches, se utilizará la función de interpretación de Zoom para soporte en inglés y español. Todos los participantes de esta llamada deben seleccionar su idioma de preferencia haciendo clic en el idioma correspondiente cuando el anfitrión active la función de interpretación. Dicha función se encuentra en el panel de herramientas en el icono del globo terráqueo. El modo de interpretación para esta reunión será el simultáneo. Gracias por su atención y colaboración.
Thank you. So remember that these and all our meetings are being recorded by instruction of the board. So with that, we are gonna start meeting. Everybody's here in person, which is great, and we're very happy about that. So please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And with that, we move to 1C, which is a brief acknowledgement of land and life. Sunnyvale School District is located on the ancestral and unceded land of the Mukwira Oglone tribe, who have peacefully honored and cared for this land for thousands of years. We recognize that every member of the Sunnyvale community continues to benefit from the use and occupation of this land. We acknowledge our responsibility to learn from the wisdom of the Ohlone people and to consider how we might work to repair injustices and to move forward together in honorable ways. With that, we move to our second item, which is the approval of the agenda, but I would like to propose I don't know how to amend this, a little amended, because we're gonna have some guests at 7, and we wanted to have enough time for our study session, which I don't think we are gonna, well, if we make it by 7, we make it, but if we don't make it by 7, we wanted to pause and do our, I think it's, well, the item when we have the recognition, item 8 at 7, then unpause and keep going with our presentation, with our study session. Well, we don't want to cut short, but we want to recognize that we hopefully are going to have some friends, maybe even a cake to celebrate at 7. So if we can make some sort of amendment for that.
So I move that we amend our agenda to have a pause in our meeting time at 7 p.m. and bring forward our presentation number 8 to the front. Following that time, we will resume our meeting, but have comments from the board and superintendent at the end so that we can make sure that we're still very focused and on track for discussion time.
I don't know, do we want to put the comments at the end? Okay.
The comments from.
I'll second.
The board comments
Yeah, board
at the end of the day?
Well, there's a motion and a second.
I didn't understand, it was a clarifying
Okay.
question. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, Yeah. Okay,
So you have discussion now.
we got a discussion about that motion. Any discussion on that?
Just as a clarification, do we even need to amend the agenda? Can that just be done through motions? Or do we need to?
Well, the agenda is already posted.
Right.
And if we amend it, then we can just flow through it and announce that we're moving through the agenda and we'll be clearer.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, because I don't want to shorten our study session, but I would like to respect the time of our guests and, giving enough time to celebrate, get our little
There's no
things
case.
that we have to celebrate, but we can celebrate what we can. Okay, with that, everybody in favor?
Before we vote, you probably want to get public comment.
Do we have a public comment on that? Any member of the public who would like to comment on this particular item, which is the approval of the agenda with the name amendment, please raise your hand, electronic or otherwise. Now, seeing no comments, we move to the board. Can we have a vote then? Everybody in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, with that, is passed and is approved. So we move to item 3 on the agenda for tonight, which is the study session. And tonight's study session, very important one, we have Hispanic student data follow-up. And for that, we're gonna have the lead from Dr. Dashalee Dean. Go ahead.
And as Dr. Dean is making way to the front, I prepared just a few comments to start us off. And first of all, like as you suggested, Isabel, it's very exciting to have dedicated time, again, for Hispanic students and to talk about their progress. And what's also exciting is that there's such a strong common and shared commitment throughout the district to serving these students better. And we realize that we need to do better by these students. This has really been strengthened through our anti-racist work that all the leaders in the district have been participating in. And their work and their goals and the coaching that they've been participating in. And so Dr. Dean will refer to the fact that our laser focus is on Hispanic ELs, the group that has the highest need, but our theory of action also clearly addresses the need of all Hispanic kids. Our strongest emphasis has been on instruction, and that's our main focus, and research says that should be where we start. However, we are focusing on a number of non-instructional goals as well. An obvious one is transportation that we've worked on, streamlining and welcoming volunteers better, with an emphasis on our underserved communities. After school and extended learning and supports, we've been doing a lot of research on that this year. So our work for Hispanic students is in a lot of different areas. So what staff would ask is, as we discuss the information tonight, what we'll be doing as staff is we'll be listening for developing priorities. As we often say, we can do anything, but we can't do everything. The listening for priorities, like the timing of this couldn't be any better because we're working on our strategic plan, and from the strategic plan will flow the LCAP. And so priorities tonight, I wouldn't expect that we would establish priorities in cement tonight because we're still moving through that process. But as we move through that process and the board begins to consider the work of all the different community groups on the strategic plan and then the LCAP, and then inserts its voice into it, this discussion tonight should really well inform that discussion and the ultimate product. So I'm excited about that as we work towards better alignment. So that's all I'm going to say for now. I'm going to hand it off to Dr. Dean for the presentation.
Okay, thank you for that intro, Dr. Gallagher. That'll be very helpful as we try to set the stage for this. This is coming back from our November meeting where we had a deeper dive conversation about our Hispanic students. And so this is a follow-up to that conversation. As Dr. Gallagher talked about, we definitely concur and are in alignment with addressing the critical issues related to this particular population, actually throughout the county and the state, but more specifically to us here in Sunnyvale School District. In addition to that, we also want to reaffirm our commitment to making positive impact And we've been very focused on that this school year. And I am particularly personally very appreciative of the work that my team has done and supporting the mission and the vision of Sunnyvale School District. In addition to that, it has become very clear to us through this process that this is definitely will require a multifaceted approach. That is very clear. And I think, before we jump into the hard data, we wanted to add just some things to remind us of where we've come from and where we are now that has made things a little bit more crystal clear to us. So we'll go through that journey just a little bit. We started with some guiding questions. We appreciate, board, that you submitted some additional questions for us to address and think about tonight. And so as we go through our presentation this evening and in our study session and have this conversation, we will address some of those other issues. And of course, it'll be an opportunity for you to ask us some follow-up questions and us to have a deeper conversation, which is our goal. So just as a reminder, to achieve educational equity by developing anti-racist educators who focus on student outcomes. And I wanted to put this up here in particular because this is what got us here. We had done a lot of things before, but what we recognized is we needed to call that out. And whether it was blatant, unintentional, because of our biases, it really didn't matter. The bottom line was it was impacting our ability to be successful with a particular group of students within our school district. In addition, that led us to an equity framework. This framework is how we have tried to guide some of the work that we're doing, looking at the climate on our campuses through the strategic planning work and conversations. We've heard a little bit about that. We've been explicitly very focused in on the academic work that we're doing. What systems are in place? Are they working? Are they not working? Do we need to fine tune some of them? And then also our resource allocation. So we have been focused utilizing this to guide our work around our intentional goals, as well as those that are directly and indirectly related to the LCAP. I also wanted to bring our attention back to our framework. And the framework that we had was our socio-emotional competency tool that allows us to kind of focus. And so when you look to the center, those are some of the goals that we're focusing in on that kind of help us to be more equitable in our work. In addition to that, you'll see as I'm clicking the slides, the integration of the work that we've been doing with our new teacher project, where we're focusing in on the Zaretta Hammond work, where we're bringing in those additional competencies. The awareness piece, which is very critical. In addition, the learning partnerships that we're doing, that's collaboration with outsiders within our school, collaborating more to get the work done. Our ability to do some information processing, taking information in, what do you do with it? How do you build on that to make some of the changes and solutions that you're trying to do? And then the final component that we focus in on is the community of learners and our learning environment. So I just wanted to put some of those things out there because these are the tools that we're using to make decisions as they're coming to us, whether it be within our department, whether it be school site to school site, as we're working with our coaches, et cetera. I put these two main focus areas up. There's a multitude of resources that we use, but these are the ones that got us to where we are to come up with the frameworks and the tools and the things that we're utilizing to help to guide the work that we're doing. Just quickly, testing BIC assumptions. I put this portion in here. And when we did the work with Dr. Benson, this is one of the critical elements that said, yes, call the anti-racist work out, the racist work out. And the big thing is we've gotten to a great, exciting point in the district. If you go anywhere in the district, I feel pretty confident they'll be able to tell you what we're focusing on, why we're focusing on it, and that it's some difficult work. But the idea is the purpose was to get some information and then to get better. But the key element is that getting better may not be as quick as we all want it. And so I think that's a really important reminder for each of us. The next phase, just to talk just a little bit about some of the work that Dr. Benson has kind of supported us with. It's really the idea of the engagement of all of us identified around the focus around academic achievement for a core group of students. And we've intentionally called out English language, Spanish speaking students, right? That's what the research and the data in our district led us to. And so that's why we're focusing in on this work. In addition to that, it was so powerful what we learned last year, we carried that into this year with more intentional coaching with Dr. Benson and his team. And the emphasis around that, what we figured out is we have a lot of data, and you probably have realized in you asking us for data, that's an area we're always trying to fine tune. What's the best way by which to do that? So part of the coaching this year with us as a district team, but also more explicitly with our site teams, is helping them to figure out a way that they can easily understand their data, use their data to inform their practices at the school site. So we have our work that we've done with the walkthroughs. That work's being led by Dr. Ballantyne. So she's been working on that. And a part of that, you could go in the classroom and just go in and great, you were there. But we're trying to go in with a great additional attention to what is exactly happening. And we're also trying to pinpoint our English language learners as a part of that. So when we're going in, we're looking at particular students, we're trying to gather information about them specifically while also getting a pulse in the classroom. And then in addition to that, using the framework that I shared just a moment ago when we're going in, so we can actually calibrate the observations. We're doing that administrator by administrator, but we have also paired them. So when they go out, they're pairing with a similar school where they can actually work and collaborate together as leaders, instructional leaders, but also the teaching staff and coaches at the campuses. So this is some of the work that we've been doing. I thought it was important for us to remember that as we go into the deep data talk here in just a moment. And then this kind of to talk about the sustainability. We're trying to come up with structures that are sustainable. So if a person leaves or something happens, we don't lose momentum of this hard work that we've actually done, and that we're able to maintain the professional coaching that we receive. So as new learners come in, as new administrators come in, they're able to carry that work on and we don't lose that momentum. So that's really important. Where we're trying to get with our students, in addition to them excelling, the critical component here is going from dependent learners to independent learners. What we found is our students who are struggling the most are very much so dependent learners, and we must raise their level of learning and expectation of themselves, but also our expectations of them in achieving. Okay, here. So educator to educator, we want to be able to have these conversations, like I said, and move our students over the continuum to where they need to get to. All right, so I'm gonna move through here. I don't want to hear all those. I was sure that just talking about us. Up, back one. So just to kind of summarize and bring us back to where we are. So this is the framework that I was referencing, the Ready to Rigor. These are some of the elements of when we're going into classrooms, what we're looking at. And these are the conversations that we're actually having in order to really look at, are students improving because, or are students not improving and because? And so those are the conversations on, I would say pretty much now, if not a daily, definitely a weekly basis that we're having with our administrators. And so with that, I'm going to turn you over to, I believe, Jonathan, Mr. Watts is going to come up and have a little conversation with us about some of the critical data elements first. Jonathan.
Okay, so this is kind of what we were going over. You've already seen this one. This was actually in the last presentation, and this was just kind of showing the students that we changing our assessments and what we learned from last year when they were using Fontes and Pinnell as the sole assessment. We realized there's something that's missing. And so when we started working with CORE and getting the phonics screener and then having a tool for it, creating a protocol and having Kinder First and Second start then to not move to that reading assessment until they've mastered those foundational skills. So this is just showing again, emphasis on the number of students that we realized we were missing throughout that process. I put this slide on here. I could have honestly chosen any of the slides that I shared with you because it's, as you saw through all those, this is the same trend. So regardless of the demographic makeup, we are still not doing as well with our Hispanic students, with our English learners, as others. You had some questions I want to kind of weave in as we're going through and just address some of the topics that we were chatting about and some of the questions that you had. One of the things that I think in the last meeting we had talked about was summer school, if we've collected any data and seen an impact from that. So I had some time to look at that, and thankfully over the past several years, we've had a really, really clear kind of set criteria that we go for our first recommendation and then second round for summer school, targeting our priority students. So the nice thing about that is I have a really clear set of data of groups of students that fit similar demographics and somewhat similar academics. Out of that group, we initially invite. Some of them end up going to summer school, and then some don't for a variety of reasons. But what that provides for me is a really good control group too. So I have a group that didn't go to summer school that is picked in the exact same way as those that ended up going. So I got around to running that data. So what I did was looked at end of year assessment, and then I looked at, and I only chose those that had the same assessment. So this was grades 3, 4, 5 through 8. So I looked at that, and I looked at all the different groups to see, did they gain or maintain? Because one of the things that I think we've looked at in the past is just growth, just looking at growth. So this time I wanted to see declines. I wanted to see just neutral, like did they at least maintain? Because we know that sometimes there is that summer slide, and this can help. So I grouped together if you gained or maintained, I counted that. So I looked at the summer school and then the students, the control group who were invited but didn't end up going. And across the board, it was really interesting because it does have an impact. And actually in some cases, like pretty significant, primarily in math though, which is interesting. So I'll just throw a few of them out there. So like English learners that went to summer school, 60% of the English learners that went to summer school gained or maintained in math from end to beginning of year there, versus the students that same demographics didn't go, 51%. So 60 versus 51%. So that's a significant group. And each group, even though the population was small, a couple hundred students in each group, that's like a visible difference. So when we looked at Hispanic English learners, same, it was 60% versus 57. So not a ton, but still slightly more those that went to summer school. Site by site, there were some interesting ones. So CMS students were 60%, if they went to summer school, 60% of just looking at CMS in general, the students that were at CMS and went to summer school, 60% of them gained or maintained in math versus 50% of the ones that we invited to go to summer school but didn't go. So that's a 10% difference, which is cool. Lakewood students, 48 versus 30%.
Clarifying question.
This is in
So
math.
are you
Yeah.
talking about CMS students from CMS? Because everybody.
Yes,
has
yeah,
CMS.
yeah.
Just-
Like their homeschool
Yeah.
CMS, yeah. Because I wanted to see if it had a different impact. And I'm just like, sometimes I just poke around until I find something interesting. And then, we learn from it. Vargas was 60% to 41, which is a really, really huge difference. So some interesting findings. Just throwing off the top of my head, what is that by math? Because literacy, I didn't see that same impact. Some of my thoughts, and these are just thoughts, is I don't think a lot of students over the summer go home and just play with numbers, just out of the blue, just like I'm just gonna do some math. But a lot of students might go home and read, or even just read accidentally. There's like a cereal box in front of you. Like there's ways to practice reading a lot, and I feel like there's probably a lot of students that over the summer may do that. So that may, but they're not practicing math. So the fact that we are having them in school working on a lot of conceptual understanding, which is what a lot of these students need also, might make a really big difference. We also do a lot of Bill Buller-esque type, she's a Stanford professor that does a lot of conceptual understanding in math. And since we partner with Stanford, we also send some teachers there. We use a lot of her practices, which is actually really similar. A lot of what we do during summer is very similar to the curriculum that we just adopted too, which is promising to see that we're kind of seeing this. So that's the only thing that I can really think of. But it's neat, and it's really promising to see that there actually is that impact. Sure.
60 versus, I think you said 51% for the kids who were selected to participate in summer school. What is it for the general population of students? Do you have figures on that? Like what's the baseline?
When I looked at just not filtering for anyone, just what was the improvement, I don't think it was even noticeable. I had to start going into certain demographics. Overall, I didn't notice it. It wasn't until I started putting filters on and saying like, okay, well, what about school by school? And then I said, okay, interesting. A couple of those had big impacts. Okay, what about Hispanic? Okay, what about English learner and Hispanic? So I just kept playing until I got numbers that would show me something like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And that's where the numbers landed.
Thank you.
So yeah.
So, the other observation that I made is that, it seems like it's very easy to have a literacy enriched environment. But for math literacy, it needs to be much more intentional.
Yes, that's exactly kind of my thought as I was thinking like, yeah, what is the difference between that? That's exactly it. Like math, you kind of need a somewhat of a guide to practice and to kind of push yourself a little bit. I feel like more than in reading, where if you have enough of the skills to start reading, you can at least maintain what you've got and practice that. But I, yeah,
So I'm hearing you say that it needs to be more of a guided experience and not all adults, let alone children, have an environment that can be supportive of engaging even in activities that would be supportive of.
Yeah. Right, and during summer also, the kids are also able to collaborate together, which makes a big difference when you're learning conceptual math. And they wouldn't have been able to do that kind of on their own at their home without someone else there too. So these are, some things. Paul.
Thank you. So some of this data is a different look at the data we looked at earlier this year. There's a kind of subtle but very critical difference in suspension data that we should talk about why it's being looked at this way. There's a danger to looking at overall number of suspensions without correcting for students that has been suspended for 1 day at least. And that can mean that when we have tiered services, 1, 2, and 3, students that are in need of tier 3 services around behavior can have multiple days of suspension. The way we code those is very clear that each suspendable offense is a different incident. But if you're not careful, you can have one student at a school who is in need of tier 3 supports and has been suspended multiple times, and it can skew looking at a school's overall data to where you look at a school, you don't know, you've seen uncorrected data, and you say they've suspended 38 7th graders and there's only 200 there, when it can be 2 students that have each received, split those suspensions amongst themselves. So there's 2 psychologies to looking at suspension data. For tonight, I wanted us to look at number of students that have received a suspension at least. That threshold being 1 day, I think is the most honest. We don't want to say, well, everybody has a suspension day, because that's not true. But this is not total number of days a student has been suspended. So looking at them broken out across the different types of student qualification for language need, you can see that the RFEP students that are reclassified fluent English proficient has the largest discrepancy. The others are all close, and that number in the bar is the total number of students, not by percentage. So district-wide, there are 13 students that are EO students that have been suspended from school at all this entire school year. That compared to 9 among the Hispanic English, compared to 9 among the Hispanic English-only population. There's obviously disparity in English learners between Hispanic English learners and non-Hispanic English learners. John and I mean, John's getting me stuck on looking at data in John's way, which can be, when you first start doing it, it's a little weird. No offense, John. But when we corrected the total ELs and EOs by total population, it looks like a stark difference. This is very close to about 1% of our total population of those students in the district. The traditional PBIS and MTSS tiers say that it's pretty typical to have 3 to 5% of your student population that are in need of tier 3 services. If you do that as a classroom, that means you have 1 or 2 students that are your highest need students. There's research on whether that's systemic, like if that student moves out of the district, usually a new student takes that high need student place, which is fascinating and kind of disturbing when we think we use tiers as if they are just these inviolable rules. They're not. They're a description of student need. So in a classroom, you'll have 1 or 2 students in need of tier 3, you'll have students in need of tier 2, and the rest will be tier 1 students that respond to typical intervention. So I don't want to say on the low end, but we're being successful that not a lot of our students are receiving suspension as an early intervention. We are doing other things first. It doesn't mean suspensions don't have room to improve, especially if you look at some of these students for total number of days, because there are students, especially at the middle school level, who are receiving multiple days of suspension for behavior that isn't correcting with what we typically do. Moving forward to looks, obviously these two are the ones with the largest discrepancy, especially if you break them from Hispanic to non-Hispanic student support. I think this went back to Tasha, to Dr. Dean? Yeah. And obviously I can answer questions about student.
I had a clarifying
Yes.
question, because I know we're gonna talk later. So just for that one, so you're saying 27 Hispanic students and 21 non-Hispanic students were suspended
Overall, correct.
overall?
If you total them all up, yes.
Great, okay.
Okay, so we're to the fun part where we get to have a little deeper conversation about some of the data we talked about tonight, but also as a part of the data packet we share it with you, board. And so we really at this time just want to say, okay, coming back to some of these main questions, but a few additional highlights, just wanted to kind of share about some of the programs and things that are happening. We definitely are getting into classrooms more this year. And that's at every school site, including our preschool programs. The middle school program is we're utilizing our curriculum a lot more effective. We've had, I think this is the second year, our Vista Higher Learning curriculum, which includes the Get Ready, Get Reading, and Bridges. And so we are utilizing those programs at both Columbia Middle School and SMS, and supporting our ELD 1 and 2 programs. So we are seeing improvements and supports in the implementation and also in the phonics support for some of our older students. Some of that phonics training will continue at Columbia Middle School in March, when they will be getting some additional training around assessments for our EL support teachers. And then we're also looking at how to do a better job of kind of leveling out our middle school students on the Lexile levels so that we can have more impact in some of the programs and curriculums that we're using. Right now, we're utilizing English 3D at Sunnyvale Middle School, and we're exploring whether we'll shift to that at Columbia next school year based upon the data. We're using a different program there. The school principal there and the coaches felt they wanted to try something else because of past experience. But I think based upon the data this year, we will most likely be moving towards the English 3D for both of those programs. But we do see improvements. We do see a higher level of rigor. We'd like to see more, but we definitely see some progress based upon some of the interventions that we put in place.
Question?
Yes.
You said leveling out for Lexile. Could you?
Yeah, basically Lexiles kind of tell you content level where students are kind of positioned. And so by assessing, you can kind of position where students are placed in their kind of their reading levels. By doing that, you just allow you to do better job of grouping your students so that your instruction has better impact for the groups that you're working with, and you can maximize on teacher expertise as well.
Okay, so grouping students at a similar Lexile level together for small group reading.
To small group instruction and interventions.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, pausing, let's start look, are we? Okay, all right. So we're open and for additional questions. We know you have some additional questions you'd like to talk with us about. So whatever those questions are, we'd like to take some time to address them and kind of let you know where we are at this time.
Okay, so with that, we're gonna start opening for questions. So if we have any member of the public who would like to speak about this particular item, the study session, item number 3 of the packet for tonight, please raise your hand, electronic or real one, online or here. Now, please. Okay, since seeing none, then we are gonna move towards our comments and questions from the board. I wanna start saying thank you very much for putting it together again and for moving forward and for allowing us to keep focusing on our targeted students. We know it's not easy, we know it's, a non-nice reality to face, but we need to do, we need to help them, and we need to help each other in our community. So with that, who wants to start from our board? We have tons of questions otherwise. Okay. Then Bridget, you want to start? Okay, yes. Oh, okay. You have a question?
Yes. So it looks like we have some knowing, sorry. It looks like we have some knowing about our students now and things that strategies that we tried that are more successful as far as interventions. Have we shared that information with our parent group so that we can start to build some parent competencies to support those specific types of strategies that are successful?
To some degree, yes, but what we really want to wait for before we begin that is to get our try to benchmark data in.
Okay.
We want to have something a little bit more formalized. I think we have great qualitative data and some classroom level data, but we would like to get more assessment data. We're in the midst of that now, and that's coming to an end, and we do plan to do that. Paul, you may want to talk about the session you have coming up where you plan to begin some of the next steps around that particular item. Oops, sorry. Mm-hmm.
This is actually pretty exciting. So we've done the listening tour with families through the equity process. We've done that for a couple years now. And one of the board questions was, what's next? What's happening? What's our takeaway? The takeaway is we have done good listening. We need to stop listening and start to present what you just said, the specific technical skills that the families can do in the home to support academic learning. So February 28th is right now where we're looking to do the first session. That's going to be K-8 parent support in bilingual ed. How do I support my child's academics in the home? It'll be broken out kindergarten to second grade, third to fifth, sixth through eighth grade. And these are, how do I most effectively read to my kid at bedtime? And what do I read? On over to what do we do over the summer? Some of the others, they're called soft skills, but they're not. They're skills that privilege has kind of given some families. How do I approach a principal? How do I read a report card? What do I do when I think my kid's lying to me about being bullied or bullying? These are things that families are saying, we don't want to be heard. We want you to start telling us how to better navigate the school system. It takes you back a little bit because saying to an underprivileged family, I want to hear you and hear from you, is that first instinct of compassion. And that cannot be the driver. It has to go to training and teaching you to have privilege in the system. So that's where we're headed with the equity series, and repeating it next year is building relationships with families so they can tell us, hey, your family seems able to navigate how to get extra help in math. Mine does not. How can I do that? So that's how we're going to start transferring skills directly to families.
Thanks, Paul.
Sure.
Bridget.
So, one of the reasons why I think the board over and over has asked for this conversation to talk about not just, I understand the theory of practice with instructional practice going and targeting the English learner Hispanic community.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that came out of like a board discussion, right? Like what was going on with the English learners who are Hispanic, like we had that whole discussion and it's been part of our overall process. Over the last several months, what I've heard from the board and what we're talking like about district goals for are meeting the needs of our Hispanic families. And I'm saying that because this is the accountability piece, right? Like other school districts have trustees on the school board who are coming after the school district for their libraries and masks or whatever, right? Like, and we are getting lots and lots of feedback, and we are very, I think as a board, my interpretation is concerned about the well-being of all of the Hispanic kids, because all of the Hispanic kids in our district are
are clearly being underserved. Like, I mean, in terms of, like, we're doing lots of things, but the academic roadmap is showing that they're performing below Santa Clara, like overall, below the state of California overall, right? So when I think of the things that we're, like, what families pick up on is just like what Paul was saying, where he's like, how do we navigate the system? It's like, I hear over and over how welcoming our office is for all of the Hispanic families, right? Like, when they have back to school night, the idea that there's some campuses where the families, like a couple hundred families who are Hispanic, who are, you know, need English support, might not have it, is problematic, you know? So I would like our district to, I personally would like our district to focus in on the things that are working at some of the campuses, right? That some of the campuses have come up with the strategies for being super open and welcoming to our Hispanic families. And to just make that our standard of practice, like a standardized practice for how we're going to meet the needs of our kids for open houses are coming up. You know, and some of the other follow-up questions that I had were things from other conversations, like I think Nancy was asking about Nancy was asking about access to parents, you know, learning things. Paul touched on the idea of summer school, and Jonathan told us what a difference it made for the kids who attended summer school. And when we went around and talked to principals, we heard over and over that the barriers for summer school were kids not having childcare. There just isn't enough childcare available, and families need full day. And so, you know, are there things that we can do now, because I'm sure you're planning summer school already, like to really ensure that the kids that we're trying to invite and are saying no because there's not full day care, that we have more childcare, that we partner with the city, we partner with the community colleges, we partner with another district. I mean, I don't know what the answers are. But I feel like we know what some of the problems are, and we just have to take that action on them. So I know I'm just saying a lot there, but I'm wondering, like, when do we take the ideas that are, like for open house, for example, like how do we ensure that families are connecting and able to participate at open house? Because
I think I have a few questions on behalf, because you stated about a few things. Some of them were welcoming on campuses, open houses, access to what they need in order to attend summer programming, some of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, what would be helpful is to have concrete examples of where those are coming from. And the reason I'm saying that is I think our principals do a really good job of letting us know when they have access issues and what they need. So for example would be, one of the things we began piloting, I think it was last year was the first year of the pilot, or it may have been the year before, I can't remember now, but we added an additional resource for languages by utilizing Language Line. So we've always had interpreting support, but one of the missing factors were the one-off. So what I mean by that, if I'm trying to conduct an assessment as a psychologist, I may need to just call the parent and talk to them for 5 minutes, right? Well, this particular service allows them to be able to make that telephone call when it's convenient for them as a practitioner, and also when it's convenient for the parent. And we do the same thing with many of our teachers in order for them to schedule case management meetings and other things like that. And that usability has gone quite up. And the reason we are utilizing that is because they also are able to allow us to access other languages that some of our other providers had not been able to. So I think for us, having concrete of some of these root areas that are being commented on that are a significant problem, I'm not hearing that level of that being the need for some of the families when we speak with our outreach assistants or social workers, and they have a pretty good pulse on what's happening at their school sites. So I think for me, trying to support a team to do that, having those concrete examples, maybe we can go deeper on our assessment about some of those questions, but I know many of the sites when I go to, they are having stuff in Spanish or giving a separate handout for a family who may not even be Spanish speaking, maybe something else. We try to get those materials available when the schools make those requests. So I definitely hear you and we want to do that, but if we have more concrete about the what and the absence, we can do a better job of assessing the need.
What about if we said, like, 2 years ago, we said that every child in our district who's a middle schooler would have access to an elective? Like, that was just a decision we changed, right? And it was just like a long-term thing. What if we said every child, we think every child, I mean, I think every child in our district and should have access at their parent-teacher conference for their parents to have someone speaking to them in their language.
Yeah, and I think there is a
Or back to school
difference.
night.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know if I can. Yeah, and there is a difference when we see the sites who have the more need. They know, they arrange their parents-teacher conference in a way that first are the family who have the more needs, so they can have and move around the translator, the personal translator, which are way better than having a third person that you never really know how good the quality is on the phone and having the time and last, which I think it may intimidate the families who may be already intimidated by the whole process. I know that other sites that are not used to have that many percentage of families who may not speak English or monolingual in a different language, they may not have the resources of having an in-person help and translator there. And that might make the difference between how comfortable they feel about looking for the resources that we can give them, looking for the help, and actually doing something for the kids. And I don't know, that was a horror story that we heard, that there were some teachers who actually would avoid, in our district, who would avoid having. What was a comment from the union that when they did a little survey, they didn't want to say who, but they did have some teachers commenting that they would prefer trying to avoid if they cannot find a translator to have those conferences, because it's very cumbersome and complicated to have the online translator.
Well, just to clarify, the online translators are not used for what you just described. We actually use in-person translator. The online service I'm speaking of is I need a phone call just to have a conversation with a parent. So it's not really used for an IEP meeting, an SST meeting, a parent-teacher conference. We actually use in-person translators for those. Okay.
Yeah, because that's.
Yeah, two different services, but this is just giving access in the way that people need it when they need it. So two different services for two different purposes.
So Bill, I have a question to try to better understand what you guys are. So like, are you guys saying like, what you would like is like at the open houses that are coming up, every parent who doesn't speak English has like their own personal translator to walk through the classrooms? Is that what you guys are saying?
For example, in what we talk about in comments, board comments a few months ago, a good example that we saw in our schools where you have during the open house or during the back to school night, they have a higher enough parents that don't speak English or feel more comfortable having the information in Spanish or in their own language. So they have, for example, 15 parents between the 3 third graders, maybe among all of them, maybe there are enough parents so they can have, while they have all the third graders in that room having the conversation about what they're gonna do at that year, during the year, you have the other 13 parents who are monolingual having the same conversation with one of the teachers who is, by the way, bilingual. And then, by the way, we have one of the teachers in the grade level who is bilingual and is saying, even though those 13 parents are their own parents from their classroom, that teacher is telling, well, this is what's gonna happen, these are the kind of materials, and explaining how the year is gonna go. That is I mean, that looks great, that looks very open, that will make, that will give a lot of confidence to these parents. And I know that this might be something that happened to this side because they have a lot of monolingual parents. But that is like an example of a good thing that we're doing great, and it will be good to have that everywhere. If we could have that, if we have enough parents that are not coming or are not showing up, or maybe only one of the parents talk, but that's the parent who work. Maybe the mom doesn't speak enough English, and then she's afraid. She's the one who is coming to school, and she's afraid to come. I don't know, an example like that may be very easily happening. And
So
she
what-
doesn't
So
feel
that's
the
an
interaction.
example of like a welcoming thing,
Yeah, a
back to
welcoming
school
thing,
night that could.
and yes, because we see over and over how important is the involvement of the parents and the involvement of the family during the education. And one of the main things that we're trying to do is being open and being welcoming to everybody.
Yeah, I understand, got it.
So yeah, learning from the little cherries of the top that we do in the good sides. Well, all the sides are good, but the good examples that we have that are happening in some sites, trying to make it work for everybody.
And what I'm hearing from that is to assess the level it's happening or not happening, because I will say that that service is and has been used at every school site. So what we will make a responsibility to do is to assess the degree that it's happening and be sure that it's happening to the degree it needs to for each site.
Well, and I think that at middle schools also, I think middle schools, it's challenging, right? Because the kids are moving around, they're in different rooms and everything like that. But there has to be a way to make Spanish-speaking families feel welcome on those campuses, and feel like they're part of things. So at SMS, there's like 200 out of 1,000-ish or 900 or something. So they really are a minority, but if there's nothing for them, then that's a problem, right? So anyway, that I would just really like to see, more of that home. I know it's not something, it's just more of that welcomingness for the whole family at school, because I think it affects the kids.
So I appreciate you talking about assessing and having exemplars. But I also look up there and I also see that every family is unique, and what might be a solution at one site may not work at another site because of the uniqueness of the parents there. There are many barriers and not everybody has the same barrier. So if we can use what we've listened and heard and try strategies that are meeting needs of people who are currently expressing a need, that has more meaning and context for me than necessarily picking one program as the solution for everything. Welcoming is great, but we even have some structural barriers that we think that back to school night has certain meaning and context. And that may not be the same meaning and context that families have about this, about whether it's important and whether or not that's the place and the way that they want to get that information even. So we need to dive a little bit deeper instead of doing the one right way, one right thing.
Well, I'm not saying, I guess I'm not saying to say, like, let's have the standard of care be, or the standard of service, right? For like, so that no matter what zip code the kids are in or the families are in, that they have access to back to school night or open house or parent teacher conferences, because it is not.
What I think what's hard for me is what's your definition of access? Like open houses, like that's when there's no like I think back to school nights makes sense, right? There's presentations, having Spanish presentation, right? That's an easy thing for me to see, but like open houses, like
what do you experience when you go to open house?
But there's not a presentation that I'm giving, right? I literally go around and my kids show me stuff. I rarely am talking to teachers.
Right, so I'm just saying, like, whatever, I would like to have the families have more access to.
I know, I'm
school
not
events,
so what
right.
I'm asking is I want to understand, right? Like, so when you say I want them to have more access at open house, what does that look like? Like, what are we not doing? Like, I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm not understanding, right?
Well, that was a good example, like we say during back to school night, 2 years ago, like the last couple of years, I've been going to the middle schools, and it happens to somebody ask me like, hey, can you help these families who just came around to show around their classes and translate for them. And otherwise, I don't see in this couple of instances, and I know those are more anecdotal, that it's more an anecdote that what is really happening for everybody, but they didn't have, otherwise, that family wouldn't know what the kids are doing during the day or why they, or feeling welcome enough at all. And, you know, I'm explaining to them like what it is happening here, this is your math class, I'm translating for the teacher, this is what they're saying. You know, it's giving them access and making them feel welcome, which we know is gonna make a difference on that. So as a standard of care, as you say, that's a good way to put it. Maybe it's not the same treatment for everybody, because maybe there might be some people who just don't want that, don't wanna talk to teachers during the back to school night. But we could say that we are taking down barriers. We are making it easy and welcoming, and not a complicated, a cumbersome thing to try to figure it out. How am I gonna fix this? How I'm gonna make it work? Are they gonna be nice with me? Are they gonna be welcoming? Am I gonna bother them now because I'm gonna ask for an extra thing? And they might already say, oh, this family is coming again. And you know, that's the feeling that you get, like, oh, there you go, the Gomez again. Like, you know, you don't wanna be that family. You don't wanna be the ones who bother the teacher. You wanna be, you want your kid to be one of many. You want your kid to be equal to the other kids. You don't wanna be the one that they point out, oh, again, they're asking for something. So you don't wanna feel like you are asking for something special or complicated, or you are putting the you know, the schools upside down because you are asking for something that every other family has.
So I'm hearing what you're saying, and it isn't that I disagree with what you're sharing. I'm struggling with how is this going to be, we're talking about EL learners. We have yet to talk about the LCAP. It sounds like you want to have a goal, and Dr. Gallagher talked about this session is not necessarily for goal setting. So I'm struggling with helping the staff who's identified opportunities to talk about what their next steps are going to be, and see how this is going to be.
Well, there is one thing, we are always told, you are one of the ones who always remind us that we are not to tell everybody how to do their job, and that they are the experts. We just need to ask them the what we want to. We are telling them what we want to. I'm not gonna tell you do what Vargas does in every school, because as you say, it may not work, and the difference from Cherry Chase to Vargas are way too big. But this is what we want. We want a good solution that can show equity, feel everybody welcome, and is gonna take down the barriers that everybody may have, so they don't feel as equal and their kids are equal. Because we keep hearing over and over that, you know, the families, they don't wanna bother the teacher, they don't wanna make their kids look different, so the teacher says, oh, the kids, these parents, they don't wanna make the teacher think that the parents are idiots because they don't speak the language or they don't know how to resolve the issues. They wanna feel equal, and they don't wanna showcase their kids in a bad light.
Right. I'd just like to kind of bring that to a circle of what I feel I heard, so my team is also clear. So what I hear is you want to basically be clear that we have assessed what access means to our families, because what we feel is providing access may or may not be, and it may or may not be open house, it may or may not be whatever, but what that means to each site and to our families. So that's one point that I hear. What I heard that was more universal is just ensuring that we have significant translation and interpretation services as needed based upon school site and specialized needs. So that was another point that I felt like I heard. And then in particular, it appears, and please clarify if I'm wrong, it sounded like more emphasis around access at the middle school level is what I was hearing more so in some of these. But those were three points that, based upon your comments, that kind of came to the top. So I wanted to clarify those before we move on.
I know we're gonna talk about something completely different in a minute, but I just wanna say that like it is not just, I really don't think it's just, like I really think it's much more simple to say, I really want us to say that every child should have access like to their parent being able to come and sit down and have a conversation with their teacher for parent-teacher conferences. I don't think that's something where if you said, well, I don't know if that school really needs that, or this group or that group hasn't really asked for that, and we're gonna assess this. Like, I think that.
I actually think that you just said that really clearly.
I
Like
think,
that was the clearest that I heard it.
yeah,
That was-
I just want it to be just very, very simple, just like that.
And the reason I say that's clear is because I don't think there's any question that every parent should have access to the child's teacher. When we start talking about things like, and I don't wanna take us on too much of a bird walk, we start talking to something like open house, I would start with, what is the purpose of open house? That could be a long discussion. One purpose is we do it every year and you're supposed to do it. That's probably not a good purpose. Like, what is the real purpose of it? And then go to groups of parents and say, what is the best way to accomplish that purpose? It might not be open house, right? So that's where the empathy interviews that like Paul is leading with his group, like that's sort of next gen, right? Like what we're gonna do in the future. Like what is the purpose of back to school night? Well, to find out what the expectations are of the class, and like it might be something, a different structure than the back to school night. We don't need to tackle that here. This would not be the time to do that. But like that's sort of next gen. But to start with, what you're saying is having every parent have access to being able to have a conversation with their child's teacher. That's pretty basic, and we better be able to do that.
But the other to me piece is, and not be left out of all school events. Like, they shouldn't be left out of it. That's what Isabel and I are trying to bring forward. So I agree with you, that is the very minimum, but I really don't want them to be left out.
So what?
Can I ask,
As welcome.
can I follow up with a question? What data are we using to say that families are being, like, what is the actual data to say they're being left out of whole school events? Because that would be very helpful so we can go back and interrogate that a little bit more and give actual hard data to assess what's actually happening.
Well, for example, when I was on the board for, or whatever it was called for, Fairwood, the alignment, whatever. We instituted, there was so much of what the parents could do and the parents couldn't do, so we put it together like, okay, let's do a parent training. And then one of the first things I did was translating the parent training that I was doing and giving the class in English and Spanish. And that happened only the 2 years that I was doing that. When I graduated, it never happened again, or any other training for the parents in Spanish. And the parents in Spanish were the ones who were complaining, and the people were complaining about the parents in Spanish. So there was already that difference between the two programs. So that's a good start. I went back to, as a board member later, I went back to many things happening at Fairwood. And it's happening the same, that the only people who go to every public event that's happening over there, including coffee with the principal, anything, are the only English-speaking parents and the non-Hispanic parents. Few of them, and they are the most, highly professional, skilled in English, who are attending these things. And I asked the PTA president of the other year, who happened to be a Hispanic lady, and then I realized that she didn't speak Spanish either. So are you guys still doing, as you are the president, are you guys still doing all the Hispanic community and all the trainings? And she said, what? No, I never heard of that. I don't think that's happening. And that's just only one of them, not looking at what was happening in middle school, or as I say, like a lot of teachers didn't know what was going on with, the Hispanic kids in middle school. And sorry, so it's 7:05 and we say that we're gonna switch and make a little pause to actually celebrate the good things and change the pace for a happy thing. And we're gonna go to item 8 of our agenda momentarily, and then we'll come back to our discussion on the Hispanic students. Thank you. And with that, we move to item 8, with, I think, Aliyah is presenting.
All right.
Go ahead, it's called 8A, recognition of Sunnyvale School District 125 years, and go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So the year 2024, specifically February 4th, actually marks the Sunnyvale School District's 125th anniversary, whatever you wanna call it. And so tonight is meant to kick off a whole year worth of celebrations, including partnering with the city on something, but also having a dedicated web page. Our next mailer will be dedicated to the topic. We'll launch a special video at Back to School Assembly. But tonight we have some very special guests with us that we're honored and excited to have to also help us recognize this very special occasion. And I want to honor their time and let them come up, depending on whichever order they determine.
I defer to the mayor.
Okay.
Absolutely. Welcome, Mayor Klein.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the other electeds or their representatives who are here tonight. So I just want to say, tonight we're really here to celebrate a remarkable milestone in the history of our community education system. It's with great pleasure that we are commemorating the beginning of a year of celebration for the 150th anniversary of the Sunnyvale School District. For over a century and a half, which is just amazing to think. Our schools have been really a cornerstone of the community, nurturing young minds, fostering growth, and shaping the futures to lead tomorrow. As we reflect on the incredible journey, we cannot help but marvel at the countless lives that have been touched and transformed within our elementary and middle school classrooms. From humble beginnings, which it's amazing to think of this city 150 years ago. The city was not incorporated until 1912. So to consider the school district being here for that long is just amazing. But from humble beginnings to vibrant educational hub that we have today, our district has really weathered those challenges. We've had lots of challenges, especially over the last few years, embraced innovation, and remained steadfast in the commitment to excellence. It is a testament to the dedication of our educators, the support of our Sunnyvale families, and the resilience of our students. Over the years, our school has evolved, adapting to the changing needs of society while staying true to the core values of integrity, inclusivity, and of course, academic rigor. As we celebrate this historic milestone, let's take a moment to honor the visionaries and trailblazers who laid the foundation for our district, as well as the countless individuals who have contributed to the success over the years. Their tireless dedication, unwavering passion, and unwavering belief in the power of education have shaped the destiny of generations and will shape the destiny of generations to come. They prepared, the school district has prepared tens of thousands of individuals for college, career, and just a productive life. And as we look to the future, let us affirm our commitment to providing the highest quality education for all of our students, empowering them to search and to ultimately reach their full potential and become responsible global citizens. Together, let us continue to uphold the legacy of educational excellence that defines our district and inspire future generations to dream, discover, and achieve. So on behalf of the Sunnyvale City Council and the community in general, I want to extend a heartfelt congratulations to the Sunnyvale School District. Thank you to our board members for their hard work, and of course our superintendent, and of course all the teachers, all the students, the PTA that really make this a vibrant community. Here's to 150 years of educational excellence and to many more years to come. Hopefully it will be successful. It will be years of growth and of course, years of achievement. So thank you for what you're doing. I have a proclamation at some point that I'll give you and we can kick off that 100 years, but happy birthday, happy 150 year birthday. It's truly amazing and thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you.
A group photo?
Okay. I can move back there or what?
Yeah, whatever.
Let me move behind.
We'll get in front of
Okay.
your thing.
We want to just do one at the end with everybody.
Actually, that might be, let's do that. I will sit back down.
Let's do it at the very end. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent, school board members. Thank you so much for inviting our office to join you on this celebration. The Congressman is in Washington, D.C., so unfortunately he could not make it tonight. But on his behalf, I have a accommodation presented to the Sunnyvale School District in recognition of 125 years of dedicated service in building diverse and strong communities of leaders through academics and for providing exemplary education for every student. So thank you.
Hello, I'm Patrick Ahrens, and I am speaking today on behalf of Assemblymember Evan Lowe, but I will say just a quick point of information. I also serve as a trustee for our local community college district on the Foothill De Anza Community College Board. So heartened to hear the rigorous concern and conversations you all are leading before this conversation, talking about trying to fill the gaps and the equity issues. And I'll just say, I did step out for a moment to talk to our chancellor, and we would be happy to continue a conversation about joint opportunities for childcare or for translation services or summer school collaboration between our programs that we're offering. I think it's important to recognize that you all are doing such an amazing job, doing so much, but there's more and more need every year. Your teachers, staff, administrators are doing such an amazing job. We'd love to see where we can partner. So we'd be happy to host the conversation. I know we have all levels of government here represented. So I've voluntold all of them to come as well. So we'll have the county, federal, state. I know these are all issues that we care about, but I just feel like we don't get an opportunity to collaborate about if we all give a little bit, maybe we can come up with some innovative solutions to all of the same people we're trying to serve. So I just offer that, and I will leave that in your capable hands, Superintendent. We can follow up with you on that. But on behalf of the state of California, I would like to just congratulate you all on your 125 years of service. Happy birthday. Incredible achievements, no doubt. You have such an amazing reputation with our elected trustees. Each and every one of you so appreciate your service. The backbone of the district, of course, is our amazing staff. We cannot do the work the amazing work and the achievements are doing as a other board member on another board with the amazing teachers, staff, classified staff, the students, the parent involvement, and of course, our amazing principals and administrators who think about this constantly and figuring out ways to improve the lives and the work that we're all trying to get to. And the conversation I was just hearing before this is just one small fraction of the work that you all are trying to move forward together. And I know that we love to be partners and endeavoring to do that. So we have a nice plaque as well.
Wow, that's a lot of pressure to follow up to. Thanks, Patrick. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here on behalf of Supervisor Otto Lee and the County of Santa Clara Board of Supervisors. Just really here to celebrate this momentous occasion with you all, 125 years. And, on a personal note, I just wanted to say that I live right next to an elementary school, and just being here, listening to the discussion has really enlightened me to see that it really takes a village and, dedicated folks to doing what's best for our students. So I'd like to thank everyone here in this room tonight, just to contribute so much to our students on behalf of, the city of Sunnyvale. So, like I said, I am here on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, and I'm going to spare you all the time to read every whereas here, because we're going to be here all day. And so, yeah, congratulations once again.
Yes, and we could do a group photo together. Wonderful.
Can I trouble you to take one of my photos? Of course. And I'll send it. My pleasure. I love and appreciate you took photos for each other too.
Thank you. I know, twice in one day.
Let's have only more people, like the 4 awards.
It's a little like spread out.
Yeah, and then we'll be around you.
Yeah. Okay. Just give me something.
Yes.
Yeah. Do that.
Please don't get my Darth Vader bands.
There you
Yeah, I need to move this.
Sorry.
Uh-oh.
I know. Or I can go from it.
I think if you're right behind it, you should be fine now.
Can you stand on the chair?
That should be good. I think that gets us off.
Yes, got it. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. We'll do one more. 1, 2, 3. We'll say Sunnyvale on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Sunnyvale.
You should have on the camera.
Can
I also get one on here?
Wait, one more.
Come back.
There's always one more.
Your job is to get
Yeah, okay. 2 more seconds.
That's right.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Do one more. 1, 2, 3. Got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we want to invite you to some cake to
We got
celebrate the
cake.
birthday cake. Yes, we got cake.
Obviously, the mayor doesn't know math. That's what I get for having somebody else write my speech and not paying attention. 25 more years. Good. That's the campaign.
Well, I'm very excited.
Almost over.
Yeah.
Well, then.
I know, it's amazing from that standpoint.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then we'll do it all over
1912
again.
and
Is this one where like,
Yeah.
just if you get more than 50%, it's over?
Yeah,
or-
I
Possibly. Actually, it'd be hard in this case. Yeah.
That's what city hall is. It's like we've lost so much of that history right here.
Good job up there.
It's good to see. Yeah.
There is cake.
I was at a conference this morning. The script draft that I got was incorrect and.
You just guaranteed us 25 more years.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. That's what makes sense.
There you're fine.
Yeah. But yeah, so.
That's just how enforcement we need that. Yes, exactly.
Huh? You sitting here? I was right there.
And then to see where we are right
It's easier. So,
I'll say this later. I can't talk and eat.
Good to see you again. This is part of our funding.
We're gonna have a 5 minute break and we're gonna start our sessions in 5 minutes so people can go to the restroom.
To bring it up, okay.
Yeah, okay, so we'll be back in 5 minutes. Let know everybody online and on the space.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I want to.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye-bye. there is really no reason to be red. So I used to get mad when I see people parking there when I was part of the school. But yesterday I was like, oh, come on, it's raining.
You realize the microphone is on, you just
And
admitted to it.
the mayor.
Because when you admitted to
It was carrying our curious.
No, it is not.
No reason for it to be red. That's what I heard.
That's right.
So just real quickly, while the mayor's here and everything, I want to have a personal opportunity to thank Aaliyah for doing this. She put this all together. She's the one that realized we were 125 years old. She's like, we should do something to celebrate. She's been working with the History Museum, which is fantastic, and the city. She arranged all of the dignitaries to come. That's a lot of work. She just took this on as a personal project. So really, I always appreciate you, but I especially appreciate this.
Thank you, Aaliyah. Appreciate you a lot. Okay, with that, I want to say to the translators and everybody online that we're back from our break. And it is right now 8:36. And with that, we keep moving into our study session, and we're going to try to end before 8. So we can have about an hour and a half of discussion. So with that, who wants to keep going? Who has another question, comment?
I just wanted to more like, we had at that list of 10 questions, and it looks like we've kind of really only touched on the first one. So maybe we want to like quickly kind of glance through that and pick whatever 3 or 4 of those that are most important, and then like go forward with those ones. That would be my suggestion.
The ones from my.
The one that's like the 10 that you guys narrowed all the questions down to like the 10 core questions. Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
Okay, so, wait, I just downloaded the 54 question one.
No, it's
and the other one.
it's in the email.
It's in the email. You know, and in that one, you know, one of the questions where it was about it was phrased, what is the time that was, or date, time that was sent at, sorry.
It was January 30th.
4:13.
There you go.
I have a question.
The packet review study session.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have a question that touches on, can you hear me? Is this
Yes.
on? Okay, is it
There you
on?
go.
Okay.
Yes.
Touches on the second question about the trends we're seeing in our Hispanic community. I have a question with regards to our data collection and how we differentiate, or if we differentiate between students that we've had since TK and students who've come later and newcomers who are just like fresh, brand new. Does this data, are these trends that we're seeing within the Hispanic student body at large, do they reflect across all of those, but especially with the kids we've had since TK? Like, I feel like the data on this testing may be skewed because we have a lot of newcomers who we need to start teaching from the ground up. But do we see these trends with the kids we've always had?
I'll let Jonathan chime in a little bit more, but I think that type of breakdown, I don't know that we've broken it down based upon how you described it, but I would say we do have data to be able to differentiate between our newcomers, which is a little bit captured in some of the English only versus English language, and then the reclassification of our English language learners. So some of that data is there. I think Jonathan will be able to tell you a little, kind of give you some trends around at least enrollment of coming in of our newcomers. But when we look at the data of the population that we're focusing in on, there's not much differentiation between that. What we are seeing similarities along the way. So if you look before the pandemic, we had already began to have some problems. Pandemic, we dropped down a little bit more. So we have a slight dip back up now that we're trying to get back to some of the pre-pandemic levels across this particular group. But that hole still exists. So whether you are just coming in or whether you've been with us potentially your entire Sunnyvale career, there's not necessarily a huge difference between those two populations, but it's more so about the classification of a group within the classification is kind of where our challenge is. But Jonathan, you want to jump in?
Yeah,
with
I
some
think that's
additional-
pretty accurate. We haven't specifically, I like not off the top of my head could I know the numbers of like those that have been with us since TK. Because what I was just writing down was thinking like, okay, data point, what am I hearing? It would be a comparison between the ELs who have been with us since, let's say, TK through 5th. So you count how many years they're an EL, they've been with us. And then I would take another student just to see if there's any difference. I would look at a similar student that hasn't been with us the whole time, but has been an EL since their TK through 5th year. So that they're like, you know, same year ELs. That's kind of how I'm thinking about looking at it. That's interesting. Because I do put together a dashboard for the principals, and this is newer, that's been pretty helpful where they can actually look at, it shows each grade level and then the years. And then there's a number in it where you can click to see like how many students of my 5th grade cohort, how many came in just this year? How many came in last year, the year before, the year before? And so that way they can actually click and say, show me my 5th graders who have been with me since TK. And then you can see the academics. So I built a dashboard that does that for them. And we use that around like when we do our language review team or progress monitoring of ELs, or before they do LPAC, it can be really helpful to kind of look at, okay, I want to make sure those students that have really been with us this whole time, let's see which domain they were lowest in, where could we put our effort. But I haven't looked specifically to see if, yeah, being with us since TK versus someone else that comes in has the same number of ELs, that impact I haven't seen, yeah.
But if they're in 5th grade,
Mhm.
they've been with us since TK or kindergarten, then they would be like almost LTLs, or are they not LTLs till they get to 6th grade? Like
Yeah, because then they'd be 7 years, like they're 7 years of
7 years
EL.
is LTLs, so if they're in 6th grade and they got it to us in kindergarten, they're still in the EL, then they're considered a long-term English learner. So it's 7th grade, you see.
I'd have to look, I'd have to look
6th
this
grade,
off.
it's
I
like
should know,
7
but off the
years.
top of my head, I don't know right now, but yeah.
Cause that was one of the others.
Yeah, one of the questions was about the long term and how can we fix that? Lowering the amount of long term
Yeah.
English learners.
And that was one reason that I kind of put that different view of the dashboard together, because that was something that I was trying to accomplish with that, is like, I want to make sure that we're not making excuses without a data point to back it up, saying, oh, well, they just got here, you know, so many of our English learners just got here. So I wanted to actually put a dashboard together so that we're not guessing, we're not wondering, but they can see exactly how many of them just came this year, how many have been with us this whole time, who are they, so that we can actually see exactly who they are, what action we can take with them.
One of my questions, last year, there were some asks from teachers pretty much about having, changing and improving our curriculum materials for English learners and in higher grades. And there was a lot of discussions about people who like it and didn't like it. So you guys made a committee of teachers, you researched, and then you got new curriculum and all the way from bottom to top, all the way to 8th grade. How is this curriculum been doing now? We heard that you are considering something called 3D. It's like, it didn't work out, we need to change it, was it not as good?
Yes, that's kind of what I was speaking to when I was talking about the middle school program and the ELD 1 and 2 courses. So those two programs that I talked about, those programs are being utilized more and are being supportive of the students at the upper levels. I think at the lower levels, what we've been doing has been effective and is working. We just need to perfect our strategies of working and utilizing ELD throughout the course of the day. That's where our challenge is.
And there is not that program that they complain because it was kind of the same story from the ones who were long-term were looking at the same story from 1st grade to 8th. It's a different one.
No, it's a different program.
I had a question about middle school. So it's listed on here as like one of the questions, number 5. Well, no, not 5. It was 3, and it talked about transitional years. But really, I was thinking, yes, 5th to 6th and 8th to 9th. But really, I was thinking about middle school. Like, I'm really interested, this gets back to like that question thing, Mike, like we're trying to say it clearly. I'm really interested in all our Hispanic students, not just Hispanic ELs, but all of our Hispanic students, which is the largest ethnic group and growing in our district. I'm really interested in them in all being able to participate and engage in all of the academic and enrichment activities that the school has to offer before, during, and after school. So I'd like them to be part of the school community. So, I know we got the transportation update from Brandt in the fall, and then we got a little touch point. I'm interested in, hey, are those Hispanic kids that are on the bus, are they able to go participate, not necessarily in sports, but in the after school activities at the campus? What's the status on the second bus? Or how many of them are playing basketball or in debate club or whatever? And does it vary campus to campus? I think there was, CMS may have found some ways to engage kids, or maybe it's more of a walkable school. I don't really know. But, how many, is it happening at both? I really appreciate the information about advanced math. And it's this is how many Hispanic kids in middle school who are participating. Are they at both campuses? Because I've done a walkthrough and it doesn't look like there's a lot of Hispanic kids at the SMS campus in the advanced math classes. And I didn't see all the advanced math classes, but I'm just wondering how equitable are we being if we have all these kids, right? So, and how much, even to the point of middle schoolers can kind of walk with their feet. They get to register for electives. What electives are they drawn to? Why? How can we make school more exciting and better for them?
So I heard 3 questions in that one, so I want to kind of clarify what I think I heard. So one was the level of participation across during the school day, but in particular, you talked about after-school programs. So we definitely think that's a great question. We were not able to pull that data, but it's something that we will follow up with. So that's one thing I heard. But the other thing I heard about is their capacity to participate. Our understanding from what we have, they do have capacity to participate. And Mr. Slayton, you want me to go ahead and talk about the program that's coming, or you want to speak to it?
Yeah, it's up to you.
Okay, so in addition to that, we are, this whole year, we've been assessing what we have as it relates to after-school programs from our actually TK all the way through 8th grade. And so we fine-tuned what we had to ensure that who's in programs should really be in programs. And what I mean by that is looking at our identified students and then reaching out, of course, to our Hispanic EL families as well, just about that access. And then one of the target things that we're doing that will be starting next week is to have a dedicated program at SMS, because it's been more limited for after-school programming. And so we will be initiating a program, and that will be including our targeted students that we're trying to have access for. So we're doing things like that and have across the district, and in particular, starting with SMS and then moving to 2 other elementaries where those opportunities have not been as available to the population.
That's the Right School program?
That is correct.
Yeah, and so, we, for ELOP, we are required to offer programming at all schools. And the state defines for whom, right? So it doesn't say for Hispanic students, so we can't identify for Hispanic students, but it is the targeted groups. I think it's English, you probably know better than that, English learners,
Low-income,
OSCS,
McKinney-Vento.
and foster kids.
Mm-hmm.
So just so you know, the reason for my question is, it's also are they playing basketball and soccer and whatever? Are they participating in those sports? Because when we've gone to Vargas on some of the site visits over the last couple of years, or even Lakewood, it's the teachers who are teaching, and they're kind of alternating between, we're going to teach academics, and then we're going to teach after school club or something. We're going to teach academics, and then we're going to try to teach the kids how to play a sport, and so it really, going into SMS, a lot of those kids don't have a lot of background in going to play club sports or team sports or whatever, and also they're not right next to the Columbia Neighborhood Center, which the CMS kids are, right?
Right.
So it's a little different, because the place on Remington is a little bit of a stretch, so yeah, I'm just really interested in like how much they're able to really engage, because I know just that feeling of connection to school is so important. I want that for all the kids.
Yeah, we talked about that, that really resonated with me like a long, long time ago. I was an activities director at a high school, right? And so I'm more kind of familiar with middle school and high school and secondary, how cultures develop within groups. And sometimes those cultures like unintentionally will become well, cliquish. Well, that makes sense to everyone. Everyone knows what that is, right? And that can be exclusionary or feel exclusionary to groups. I think that's a little bit of what you're referring to as well. The adults might be doing it inadvertently, but the kids may be doing it inadvertently too, where a certain team might become more attractive to a certain group of kids and feel exclusionary to others. So that's something where I would say certainly at elementary, but probably even more intentionally at middle school, we would want to be aware of. And actually, I was talking to one of the middle school principals today, and he shared an example. I don't want to be too specific, but he shared an example just like that, where he felt, as you're saying, Hispanic kids weren't participating in a particular group, and like, what can we do to change that? So like, he's on it.
So all of this conversation has to do with cultural competency and perception. And I want to be mindful of the things that we think that are important for kids to participate in may or may not be relevant to them. So rather than talking about what are they participating, how can we make them feel they belong? And it doesn't matter if it's after school, at breaks, at lunch, or other, what are we doing to make kids feel a sense of belonging? And that's.
I don't disagree with you, but I also, in addition to that, I think that there is something to be said if you've got a school that's very diverse and the after-school clubs and stuff are not diverse at all. And I know you're saying they could be interested in something else, but what if they just don't know? I mean,
I understand, but it goes to a sense of belonging. What do
I
they
know.
need to feel like they are there and belong to?
I agree
whatever-
with you,
to whatever-
Sure.
And I think the advanced math, I think that would be a good goal for us to have the advanced math looking the same as the percentage of the school demographically. For example, trying to, and if, then make more advanced math, or hire more teachers to make more advanced math, it is the ones that we don't have enough, but or I don't know what is the answer, but it will be good that the advanced math class, and that we have enough kids in advanced math, and even open more classes in advanced math if possible, even geometry, not making an elective, but making another extra advanced class. So the kids, we have enough kids from every demographic in those classes, and science and everything, yeah.
I have a question with that. We've talked in the past about having better articulation with the high school district and following these kids. I think I would appreciate that, especially in conjunction with, and then the follow through of how they're doing at Fremont or Homestead. And tracking those kids in those advanced math classes as they go through and making sure that they're still doing well, or that their careers forward. If we have, I feel very strongly that with the Juntos class at Columbia graduating soon, they have like a sort of gateway into AP classes. Like maybe these kids will be encouraged to take AP Spanish. And I really want to see if that is true, if it holds true that if they take AP Spanish, maybe that'll be a key into other AP classes, into other advanced coursework that they otherwise may not have applied to or felt that they were welcome in. And that's just a feeling I have, and I just want to see if that is substantiated. Sorry to put that.
Oh, no, that's good, thank you.
Okay.
What I appreciate about the way you stated that was, like, I have this question and the reason is, and that really, really helps staff if you tell us like what the why behind your question. Because like, okay, it's a feeling, like, okay, we can explore that. And it's not something like, I'm expecting you to take this type of action. So like, I appreciate when you state the why behind the question. So thank you.
Well, like 9 can be, it's related also with the change of, like, I don't know, with the work that we've been doing, we're very glad that we're doing it, and we're very glad that we're working all these questions, and number 9, what improved academics outcomes are we seeing? When can we expect to hit our targets? And I think this could be one, it's not the first time we talk about trying to have advanced math for everybody. But also like, when we saw the numbers from the same county, not even the state, and we are not there, not even with the county, and our neighbors, Mountain View, not to compare, but they have one school that half of the kids are McKinney-Vento, or 20% of the kids. So it has high needs, and they have way better numbers than ours. So it's not because they are richer or they have more opportunities or whatever it is. They are not. So when can we start? Do you think we can start filling this gap that we're working? And I know that you found some foundational programs problems that weren't being addressed or seen before because the tests we were using weren't good enough, and now we have a better one. So how can you see this working for us, and how can we expect, and what do you recommend we can improve, change, get for you? What can we buy for you to make it better? What can we how many people do we hire for you? What do you want us to do so we can make it work?
I wish it was that magical, but unfortunately, I don't think it is. But what I will say is that we are very hopeful on our upcoming data, because it will be probably the first time in 3 or 4 years that we'll have a little bit more concrete, consistent information to make some comparisons and kind of look at some root causes that we have. We do know that the phonics and phonemic awareness skills of students was definitely a problem, not just for our Hispanic ELs or what have you, but just our students in general. So we do know that that's one area, and we're hoping some of those changes we made this year, we're going to begin to see changes. Like I said, we do have some anecdotal data that's showing bright spots, but not enough that I would say, oh yeah, it's happening, it's going. But I hope that when we get that, we'll be able to come to you either directly or through another executive summary that we sent through Dr. Gallagher, but some kind of way so that you can see that. With regards to the second part of that question, which says, when do you expect us to hit our targets? Now, that's a little bit more challenging because I think we need a lot more information. But I think it's aligned with what our focus has been this year, which is that we want to see at least a minimum of a year growth out of all students. And then for our students who are behind, we would want to see a 1.5 year growth. So for us, while a student may not be proficient at the end of this year, our target or our growth or our measurement would be, did they grow a 1.5 years, or to what degree did they grow? And that will be the beginning of a measuring stick, if you will, that will be more consistent, that we can also carry from school to school, program to program, kid to kid. So that's what we're looking to have as our personal measuring stick, because we have states testing, and we're not unrealistic in thinking that suddenly everyone's going to be proficient, because that's not going to be the case. But if we can see that we're meeting more students or growing at that 1.5 years who are below grade level, then we'll feel like we're on the right track.
Yes, I just want to go back to question number 2 for the general. That ties in a little bit with number 2. So, you know, I was just thinking about this time last year, we're getting ready for a February break. I know lots of people are very excited about it. But we did hear from a teacher last year who called in and who said, hey, we shouldn't even have February break because the families that she teaches, like the kids, at home, they're not doing anything. The families have to choose between food and, the electricity bill. So I think we got a report from Mike saying that our numbers of students like who qualify for Title I through all the efforts that Lori and everybody made to like get that information. We have more socioeconomically disadvantaged students. I know a lot of our Hispanic families are socioeconomically disadvantaged. So I'm wondering if there's a plan or for like the February break or the spring break to connect them, whether it's through Second Harvest Food Bank or like, are we continuing to have like those services so that over the breaks, or maybe it's our own food services, have meals available for the kids? If there's really a higher need of socioeconomically disadvantaged students than last year, or we've just seen an increase since the pandemic?
Mr. Slayton, you have some additional details on that. I do know that the social workers, if they have families and they know about those families, then they kind of situate those families for what they need. But on a larger scale, let Mr. Slayton talk about that.
Yeah, so we actually did address this with our school outreach assistants specifically, who manage all of the Second Harvest food distributions. Last year, we had Second Harvest food distributions dates added over the breaks. This year, I think Second Harvest set it up differently where they won't be on site, but food distribution will continue. So not so much with social workers only, but the school outreach assistants that know the target families that aren't just using the food pantry supplementally, but are using it as more critical food. They're getting resourced to do over break as well. There's also food distribution scheduled right before break. So just to kind of get people set up. The next step is offering, when we get to things like housing assistance and we get to those bigger items that we don't have the capacity to do, not just saying, well, I'm sorry, but don't do that, but going back to no wrong door. Your family needs food. Here are the options, not just like, here's a list, but let's get you connected, especially when the school doors are closed. Because you're right, our vulnerable kids, they don't understand why they're hungrier over break because the parents didn't get a food distribution. So we have, with school outreach, worked on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, if I can add to that, maybe the board president of Sunnyvale Community Services might be able to add something as well. So we're the biggest district that Sunnyvale Community Services serves. There's also Fremont, there's Cupertino, Santa Clara, and even Alviso, they serve Alviso, so it's not just us. But they're noticing, their social workers are noticing a huge increase in requests for service.
Yeah.
And part of that is just because like our social workers and others are doing a better job of referring families, and part of it is increased need. I mean, it's all wrapped up to the point where they're gonna make a little push, like they need to increase their budget, like to meet the need. I don't know if there's anything you can add to that, and I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I know, thank you. No, it's true, and I think there's a lot of similarities between Sunnyvale Community Services Challenge with the one-time funding going away and needs spiking, more identified needs that are coming out. So I think it is causing us to think differently now that we've kind of shifted out of that pandemic kind of mindset and recovery. Now we're having to do what we can do more with less or try to expand. And so we're trying to stay ahead of those conversations. And I think the partnerships that we have with Fremont Union High School District, with Sunnyvale, I'm getting all my Sunnyvales mixed up, the Sunnyvale Community Services and Sunnyvale School District is causing us to now have those articulated conversations now that we're entering kind of this new phase. So I think what we've done in the past has worked to a point, but now we're thinking differently. And I think even putting my Sunnyvale School District hat back on our strategic planning process is also helping kind of focus and define that work over the next 6 years. So I know the Second Harvest Food Bank is a big component, but also a lot of the services at Sunnyvale Community Services we're having to augment with additional proteins. Because even from Second Harvest, Sunnyvale Community Services is getting cut. And I think a lot of our program that Sunnyvale Community Services is implementing is getting reimbursed about 80 cents on the dollar from the county and the Fed. So a lot of parallels with the school district with encroachment on different programs, so.
Thank you.
I don't know if that helped, it made it sound worse.
No, it wasn't great.
Yeah, like Jeremy's saying, like I forgot this part, SCS, got a lot of one-time money and donations, and like our budget, like that's being taken away as need is being better identified. So that's like their real budget challenge right now.
And maybe increasing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, it could be increasing too. Well, because as, what was it, rental?
Yeah, rent moratorium, the freezes, yeah.
But that whole thing went away, that's causing more family stress too.
Right.
So, did we go over the 10 main questions? I think, are we?
4 was about the status of newcomers. Can I just read that one?
Yeah.
I'm gonna just read it. What is the status of newcomers? How many do we have? How are they progressing? What is the plan for supporting their inclusion in the school community? What is the timeline for proficiency? What challenges come with the diversity of the various groups represented within the larger newcomer group? That was a lot.
It's just
Sounds like a
one
study
question.
session.
So-
Yeah, sounds like.
So we'll start with some numbers and
I
then
can at
just
least give you the
kind of.
numbers of newcomers.
Yeah, okay.
So what's interesting is like this year, it's 25% of our EL population, so 25% of the ELs, the newcomers, yeah.
And newcomers is the last 2 years?
Within 1 year.
It's just 1 year.
Yeah.
Wait, is that Hispanic newcomers
No,
or to all?
Just
Okay.
all, yeah. And then last year was actually the same. I had to run the numbers twice just to make sure. But it was also 25%, which somewhat makes sense with ever changing, like some are getting reclassified, so they're not gonna be in the EL bucket. And then some might leave, and then we're getting new students coming in. So it kind of makes sense that it would be somewhat the same. My next question I was trying to Google, like as I was sitting here thinking, is, how did that compare to the state, to other counties, to other districts around us? So that's something I need to look up. Like, do we have a higher percentage of newcomers than surrounding districts or surrounding areas, which is intriguing, so I'll look at that.
I have a question to the newcomers. I feel like when we say Hispanic students, do we mean Hispanic students as in Spanish speaking? I feel like there are newcomers from Latin American countries who might not speak Spanish as a first or second language.
Yeah.
Do we have numbers on that, and do we include those?
I mean, I could run, that's a data point that I could run. I don't have it right now. But yeah, definitely, because we're getting students from a variety of countries and a variety of languages.
But Hispanic, I think.
When I'm saying Hispanic, I'm actually, I'm using the Hispanic yes or no question that basically drives all of the data for the state and federal level and everything. And so on the home language survey, and when you're registering your student, there's the first question is, are you Hispanic? And it's yes or no. And then that overrides anything you say below. And so because then you're gonna ask questions of what ethnicity, and you can choose up to, I think, 4. But if you say, yes, I'm Hispanic, then that's what your count is. If you say, no, I'm not Hispanic, then if you put, down here, it could be, white or 2 or more races. So it is interesting because a lot of people that will say, yes, I'm Hispanic, they have other recognized ethnicities that they report down below, but the one that we use is that. So it's regardless of speaking Spanish or not. So there could be Hispanic students that don't have a Spanish speaking background. And then we also have students that aren't Hispanic that have a Spanish speaking background too. Yeah.
I guess my question is, how many students do we have who, I feel like all these challenges that we've identified for Hispanic students, at least for the most part, they do have, in theory, Spanish as a common language, but I feel like there are some unknown number of students who maybe speak an indigenous language from Colombia, and then these problems get even more magnified for them because how do we handle that, and how many of those are there?
So I guess a follow-up question or data point would be to break down the newcomers more, but to answer the latter portion of that question, our approach is the same, is to assess what the needs are around language, around other issues, why they're here, how they got all of that. So at the site, they kind of do that, bring in social workers, bring in the outreach assistants to support with that, and then a plan goes into effect based upon that. And then they assess what's needed academically and try to intervene in that way based upon who the students are. So those are very individualized plans based upon who the students are, what the languages are, et cetera.
And they probably check because they're coming from a Hispanic country, even if they don't. Today I was talking with the superintendent from one of the San Jose district, and he was saying that he has quite a sizable community who are not just Hispanic, but the parents only speak some indigenous language or as a main language, and already have trouble communicating in any other language that is not that one. And they have at least 4 in their district that are sizable communities like that. So they are all into the group of Hispanics because they come from different parts of Mexico.
I feel like the challenges for that group in particular, where we can't even reach out to them in Spanish or in English, become even more magnified. And I wonder if that's a place where we can partner maybe with the community college district if they have professors or something who speak those languages, where we can reach out to those families as well.
I don't know if we have any of those in our district currently, but we can check and follow up. I think most of the languages we have in our district, we have some level of resource to reach out to them.
And something that in many of the events that I go, I get people coming to me, and it's happened to me on Wednesday on the Global Senegal, or Tuesday, when it was. But it happened to me in the last 3 events that somebody comes and tells me that they wish they were more teachers who spoke Spanish.
Yeah.
And, well, that's a goal that, might take many years because, we have teachers here. And they say, no, what if we even have volunteers who will come and help the teachers who want to learn Spanish? We give them the opportunity. And I think that we have mentioned this, like maybe we can give opportunity voluntarily and open, go with the high school district who has adult education, or take with the community college some sort of, understanding. Whoever wants this, we can pay their Spanish classes.
Incentivize professional development.
Incentivize professional development in their own time and say, hey, you want this, we pay for the classes or whatever. But of course, this extra is on their own time, probably won't be able. But that's just an idea or a way, because some parents are telling me that they don't feel that there is interest, and they would say like, well, we can even do it voluntarily, we are many, maybe we can get together and make a group and we'll, I don't know, it's not that simple, but thank you for bringing
Well, I would say yes,
the idea.
absolutely. And something that I got really excited about, and Tasha had to bear the brunt of my excitement on this, was San Jose State sent out their annual report. And I was just kind of paging through it, and then they had a little pie chart, and I have it in my office, of the ethnicities of their students. And I'm like, this is amazing. And the reason it's amazing is because for years, when I sat in Jeremy's seat, or Mary Beth, I was hearing we need to recruit a more diverse workforce. Well, I think it was 17% of their student population in the School of Education is white. Everything, and then it's really starting to reflect the community. So that just gives us a much, the pipeline of teachers is becoming more diverse. And then last night I was at a meeting for the advisory board for Santa Clara's School of Education, and they reported, I'm sure it's not as good and they didn't have the data in front of me, but they are now a minority serving, maybe not institution, but college of education. So that's exciting to me too, that the pipeline is going to start reflecting the diversity of our community. So there's help. And we need to do what you're saying, let's, wherever we can mobilize our community to help, because that gets them involved in the school too. In some ways, that's even better.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we
get
have
connections.
So we have partners with San Jose State in the past to get PD that actually is credible towards foreign languages, was Spanish, and I did participate in that particular coursework as well. So lots of different possibilities.
I've heard from a few families, they find out that I teach English at the adult school, and they're like, do you have any openings in your class? What level do you teach? And I'm like, it's a whole process. You have to go. They're gonna be having more, another testing session, and then they hire teachers based on how many people at each level. So I think there's 4 people teaching at most of the class levels now. But I heard from some Ellis parents that there was an interest in getting more English classes, because the parents want to communicate with teachers. So, I don't know, I know we have the high school district out at CMS. I don't know if there's any interest in other sites or expanding that at all, but I'm not sure how many people are coming. I just would say send them there.
Contract, because I think we committed to 8.
Yeah.
And we've already gone over a half an hour of what we originally had anticipated for the study session.
Well, no, we kind of thought during that we were taking at least a couple of hours, or an hour and a half to 2 hours, and we took half an hour for our celebration. Yeah, I think we went, do we want to touch any last questions before out of those 10s that we haven't?
I have a question about, all right, I'm just going down the list honestly. The fifth one, new middle school English learner curriculum. Could you talk about that? I know we've gone over it before. I'm wondering, I'm just trying to picture this. Are the middle school teachers who are teaching the kids everything else also teaching literacy at this point? Are they like also teaching phonics as they go through and teach?
This is the,
ELD 1 and 2
Right.
and for the LTLs.
Oh, okay.
yeah, so that's the program we talked about a little bit earlier. That's specifically, at least that's what I thought that was referencing, and so that's going pretty well and students are accessing and that's improving.
Cause do the LTLs at the middle schools now, do they have a separate class meeting time or do they just have like a coach that they?
I think some of them potentially might be an ELD 1 and 2, depending on who the student is, and then the additional support would be in their other classrooms through ELD.
No, I mean so I know there's ELD 1 and 2 classrooms. I'm wondering about the LTLs, like do they have their own time? Like, do they have their own class now? Because I think they were like rowdy one year and they got disbanded. They were like, it was bad, it was the pandemic, you know, they're like.
I think most of that support is, like I said, is working through their coursework and then working with, and then some of them may have additional support at CMS through their flex time and then through the ATS time at SMS. I'll put a note of that as well.
They don't have, we don't have a,
yeah,
for any of the other like regular classes, cause it's supposed to be integrated.
Okay, so over there. Oh yeah, and then I don't think we touched the number 10, which is, we've done, I think you touched a little bit the part that we keep asking and asking, and now we're trying to implement, and I would like this to translate in simple, that simple answer to us, like, we did a BIPOC equity summit, and we were very happy that this, came from you guys and did it, and it was awesome. We've been doing a lot of equities summits during the year. We are doing all this work, and again, we might be a little bit sad that it's still not showing, but we understand that it's a process. So how are we translating what we learned into what we are doing? Because there were a lot of powerful things that came from, all those messages that came from that particular summit. It was amazing and it blew my mind. And it's similar to what happened a few years ago that we had that super powerful statement from one middle schooler saying, I cannot play in the band or have an elective because I'm dumb, I cannot speak English, so I don't have an elective. That was very powerful, and that helped us move even faster the change at SMS. And from here, we had a lot of powerful statements, and how are we incorporating that into what we're doing today, or how we plan to use that to improve ourselves and help also the achievement gap and everything academically, get results. Like the thing that I'm going today and tomorrow is called Get Results. Like, how are we getting results from this, the conference in CALSA?
Right. I'll say the first portion of that, and Mr. Slayton might want to give a little bit more, Paul, but our main focus this year has been about building a community and inclusivity. And that was the feedback that we've gotten, that we were working so hard to solve a problem for people we don't know. So a part of the work was about, you need to build community, you need to build belongingness and all of that. And as you're doing that, also be cultivating the kids, because it's really going to be through the kids to the families where that change is really going to happen. And so the events have been function around that. So now we can get to the event that Paul talked about, where we're gonna be able to focus on the reading, and through our outreach assistants and social workers being able to engage those families to begin engaging in some of the skills, if you will, to be able to support at home. But Paul, you wanna add more to that?
Yes, the cognitive error that's been revealed in my own thinking around equity and access is that the underserved community has the answer to the problem we're seeing in our system. And if we can get enough time and enough authenticity in their sharing, they will tell us how to fix it. That is not how this works. It is, it's an error in thinking, but it's a very natural one. Like, if only we could hear and understand what this family needs, we could deliver that or buy that program, and then things would be better. The answers and the fixes are within us as the power holders within the system. So the outcome, and you say the applicability, is we know exactly what works for students. Parents that know how to support academically in the home. Access to the school site that's as unhindered as possible. Language support at school activities. These are not difficult things. They have to be broadened to the point where it is our best practice, that a Spanish-speaking family has as much access to everything we can do to support a student. And then I think, speaking to what Nancy said, access does not necessarily mean representation. If everybody can join the basketball team, it does not mean the basketball team should demographically reflect the school. That isn't an accurate measure, but it's a natural one. And we have to be very careful to say, well, you have to play basketball after school, otherwise we're not offering you equitable access to basketball. It's not poor thinking, it just doesn't go deep enough. We do not need families to come to events. We need families to have access to support their kids in the classroom. And that's much more subtle, it's much more culturally embedded, and it's a lot more important that we teach families how to access schools. That's what I'm learning.
Okay, so I just would like to say you have two comments about that. First, when we were at the event, I think one of the things we heard the kids say is, why should we share what our issues are? Because nothing's gonna happen anyway. So I think my interpretation of Isabel's question was sort of like, what are you getting from the kids that we need to work on?
Sure.
Not like specific things. Going back to the after-school programs and whether or not we see certain faces in the room, what I'm saying is we should see them somewhere. I mean, and I really do disagree with the idea that we don't need parents to come to our events. We do need parents to come to our events, especially if they're doubled up with awards ceremonies and they're doubled up with this or that. If we're not getting, if they're coming to events and they're not supported, or they're not coming because they're not supported, I think it's a fine line to say, I really don't wanna say, we don't need to see all parents at events, we want every single kid's parents at those events, you know what I mean? Like, I hear what you're saying, that you're saying it's not like, we're not counting, but if we see nobody and we're having an event, then it is sort of like they are being excluded in some way because they're not.
Well, it might not be the right event.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they got the invitation, but they didn't feel like they will add anything to their life being there, or vice versa, or adding anything to the event if they go.
Every single family is different. I think of my husband's parents and why they didn't go to school events. It had nothing to do with them, and they were okay. It was okay. Like, and so and that was just one, right? And that was a very shorthand. And I'm in trouble for talking about my husband in open meeting. Don't tell him. So every family is going to be different. I think that's what Paul's saying. Like, we've got to listen to the families and see what they need. It serves an indicator if there are, say, no Hispanic families at back to school night. It's an indicator that is back to school night serving them? Are they feeling welcome? It's just an invitation to ask more questions.
But so what about the first part of it? Like, what's coming out from the kids' things that you're seeing, that you're like, oh yeah, we do hear you on that, like.
Sure, so the kids' feedback is around things that you'd expect from young people
Lunch.
about quality of lunch, the bathrooms are gross. I don't always feel my teachers are listening to me. It's the idea of the 6th grade president who runs on the platform of more recess time and gets the votes, and really that isn't something that we can have action on. So working with Quetzal, our consultancy group, their goal this year is that we learn to build relationships with underrepresented communities, not that we respond and say, well, we're going to change the lunch menu. Actually, Lori's done a lot to work to, acclimate our lunch menu before this. But so to your question, there are very clear bullet points we've heard. Some are things like my teacher said something racist and it bothered me and I don't know what to do. Those are actionable, not more recess time. And I'm not diminishing, because Quetzal was very good with us saying, hearing those things means we're doing the work, because to an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old, that's an issue. And we've created a space where they can share their issue. And the child saying, why share? Because no one's going to do anything. It's an indictment, but it's also authentic. And it's good to start hearing that. It's painful because it means this kid has either heard that in their home or has shared with an adult in our system and not seen action that they want. Doesn't mean they haven't seen action.
Saying that is actually saying something though to us.
It's
right?
saying something. It's a safe.
They felt brave enough to say that.
Yeah, and I'm hoping it didn't even feel brave. Like ideally, it didn't feel like I'm making this big step. It felt, in the context of the game we did with the snowballs, it felt just, well, I get to complain right now and my complaint's going to be heard. And again, we can't measure our effectiveness in a reactionary way, but we're starting to hear families and do things and say that from the parents, they're saying, how do I help my kid with their homework when I don't get the math? They're doing it a different way than I learned. So that's the action to take, is equipping the parents with what they want and then going from there. And doing this all next year, doing the same pattern of,
I was just gonna ask
yeah, we
that.
got,
So
this
it's
is now the
another
new,
group of
correct.
families
And then hopefully some established, this is what we do. This is a series of events that are to make sure we're centering and hearing what you need and then giving it to you. Not that that family has the answers, but that we can see what we're supposed to do. That's the idea.
As you guys do that, are you going to try to find ways to, like the previous years, people like incorporate them in some of it at least, so it's not like,
Yeah,
oh, we're done with you, we don't care about you.
We'd hope so. And then there's the trick about there's students that are vocal students that are socially adept. We can't just hit the same 5% of middle school kids for everything. But if you say who's willing to come and speak in front of adults, the same kids raise their hands. And that can't be the new thing. So, and we can't always use a consultancy group to do this. We have to learn to do this on our own. So that's kind of the task too next year.
Is there any way to build ambassadorship within that parent group?
That's the idea. That's pretty far down the road, apparently. It depends how it goes. It's different in every district. But we have a lot of ambassadorship in something like DLAC, but it's also very targeted to an interest of that community. Like that one dad who's like, my child, I want my child to reclassify. Asking that dad to speak to parent engagement at back to school night, it's a very low interest subject. So ambassadorship would be amazing. I think that's a little bit of work. We're looking for voices in our systemic adults that can present at events. Me standing up in front of an equity event with a translator is not where we're headed. We want to identify like familiar adults that are comfortable speaking that can start running these events internally. That's the goal.
Well, thank you, Isay. Thank you very much for
good
going through
discussion.
this. I wanted to finish with how Mike started. Like, we are doing the hard work. This is difficult. This is looking exactly at the thing we are not succeeding, and we are it's the same. There were 59 questions, but I think, or 50, whatever. They were all the same questions that we've been asking for the last few years, and we keep asking them because it's difficult and we don't know how to solve it, and we want just to be able to remember that we need to try to solve something that is difficult and nobody knows how to fix. So we're gonna try to do it.
So we're trying.
We're trying, and thank you very much for trying with us and for having patience and working so hard, because we know all of you work so hard and do a great job with all your heart.
Thank you. And I just have one follow-up question so we know our action items from here. So we're clear. There were some particular data points you still wanted. So we want to know how those should come forth. And then with regards to some of the progress monitoring that we're going to be doing following Try2, is that data also that you would like to be updated on once it becomes available?
So for me, I would like it in one of the reports that comes out on Friday.
Okay.
Because it's a work in progress. And I know you're probably going to be, even though we're looking at the LCAP right now, we're getting midterm data, we need to wait until we get that data and then have a discussion later on. How does that fold into what it is that you're proposing to do for LCAP? So if we can get the data and if there's any uncertainties or clarifying questions, we can have that answered ahead of time. And then we'll be ready to dive deeper in more meaningful discussions about actionable items for LCAP for next year.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then, well, thank you very much. And with that, we close this item at last. And good news is that the next item, which is LCAP, is like 90% what we just discussed.
Oh my gosh,
It
yes.
should be very short.
Yes, okay.
Okay, so with that, we move to item 9, which is review and discuss the local control accountability plan, LCAP.
We're actually on item 5.
Huh?
We're on item 5. We were only skipping board comments.
No, I thought we were doing the comments at the end of the. So you're gonna, I thought
the comments?
It was
Oh, that's true, that's true. So, yes, sorry about that. Yes, we were doing, we were moving the comments for them. We are not moving all of the other comments. So we want to invite, for item number 5, comments from the Sunnyvale Education Association. If there is any member from, yes, from the Sunnyvale Education Association who wishes to talk with us right now, please go ahead. Yes?
We have Wendy Smith.
Yay. Hello, Wendy. Welcome. Please start.
First of all, this is coming a little, but I wanted to thank everyone for the holiday card. It brought a smile to all of our faces. I also want to say how much my members appreciated Dr. Gallagher's mid-year update and check-in. Those kind of things really connect us all. Regarding your study session, this has come up many times in our union meetings as a real need for teachers. We definitely need the district to make it a priority for us to be able to communicate better with these students and their families. As much as we do, teachers are not always given the resources to their non-English parents. I, for one, had a very personal experience when looking for a translator for my own parent-teacher conferences this year. I was told by the district to use the for conference, which requires for the call. Classroom phone lines are not even long enough. They're only like 2 feet long. Plus, a person on the language line cannot see what we are sharing with the parents. It was impersonal and not useful to me as a teacher. Many of us have gone to the community and seen a translator. Right now, I have English-speaking students in my classroom. I have to rely on Google Translate, which I downloaded through my store. But there's nothing to communicate with the provided by the district, and I have no resource for translation. Google Translate is not always accurate, but I have no way of knowing. I'm in the 29th year of teaching, so I have more knowledge of where to get translation support, but I can tell you it's quite the majority of my students do not. So we really want to see the progress the district makes in this area. Thank you so much, and just really stay safe during the storm. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment. It came a little bit broken, but I think we got the meaning of everything you were saying. Did you get that?
I got most of it.
I think
Yeah,
it
it's written down.
It broke a little bit.
It broke up a little bit. I think if you follow up through email, just to make sure
Just in
that.
case we miss something, yeah. But thank you, and thank you for your comments.
Yeah, perfect.
Yes, perfect. So, with the next item on the agenda will be the comments from the California School Employees Association, which is item number 6. If there is anyone who wish to talk, representing
There's an
them.
official representative.
Is an official representative? Okay, with that, thank you. And now we have comments from the public. So in item number 7, this is the moment where the members from the public get to directly address the governing board in any item of interest to the public that is not on the agenda today. However, provisions from the Brown Act, Government Codes 54954.2A and 3 preclude any action being taken on any item or non-appearing on the posted agenda. Time limits allocated to public testimony are 3 minutes per person and 20 minutes per public comment. In general, speakers are asked to give their name and affiliation so we can get an accurate record and it's reflected into the meeting. So please, if there is any member of the community who wishes to speak, please raise your electronic hand today. Okay, we have one person. Please go ahead, start by identifying you and your relation and affiliation to our district. Thank you.
It's Susan Humphreys Sala.
Okay, Susan, go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Oh, hi, great. Hi, my name is Susan Sala, and I have a son at SMS who has been receiving special education services since kindergarten. I'm also a member of the SELPA 2 CAC Community Advisory Committee, representing Sunnyvale. Oh, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, perfect, great. Yeah, first of all, I want to thank the school district for organizing 2 special education parent sessions for the strategic plan feedback. I attended the first one on January 18th, and I'm happy to report the attendance was the highest for any session up to that point, according to the moderator. And there was also a strong Latino parents representation. Approximately 1/3 of the parents attending were Latino. So I think the district's outreach methods, email, text, voicemail, community outreach coordinator follow-up are really effective. And then my last point is, in talking with other special education parents, we think there is a need to do a deep dive into the assessment data as kind of a next step, either in the February 28th strategic plan meeting for special ed parents or at a different time, as the assessment data wasn't addressed in the January 18th meeting. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, and thank you for your comment. Okay, with that, we move forward. Again, we cannot make any comments of anything that is not on the agenda, but you are welcome to write to us or keep writing. I know you wrote to us. With that, we need to move to the next item. We are moving into comments from the board to leave it at the end. And now we have the presentations, which is review and discussion of the Local Control Accountability Plan, or LCAP, and we have the mid-year update.
Okay, so this is our mid-year update. Fortunately for us as a school district, for the last several years, we've actually done what now is actually, I guess, required by law, that a mid-year implementation and kind of where we are plan will be required each year moving forward as a part of this year's plan, as well as the next 3-year plan that we're about to go into. So this will be coming forth. This particular plan has the same level of requirements for checkpoints like with the county, but it's really more so to keep us accountable to what our kind of goals and our outcomes are and be able to report that to the board and then also to our community. So with that, the idea is that we would be able to kind of take a look at, our mid-year, and we get a sense, some stuff is not going to be known yet, either because of when it's measured or why. And then also we can give you a little bit of kind of how we're doing, and then some things that we actually have learned as a part of our process. So this gives us a good sense of a pulse of where we are and work that we can continue to do this school year. So our LCAP goal number 1, this is our particular goal that's just kind of like really about facilities or qualified staff, resource allocament and things of that nature. So just a few updates with regards to that. I won't go through all the items because some of this in some of our discussions actually this evening, some of it we've talked about a little bit, but just want to kind of highlight that we are looking to provide instructional materials to students, and that's actually happening. Staff are being trained in implementing some of the supplemental materials that we have. In particular, one of our emphasis was to ensure that our special day classrooms had what they needed, and that has taken action, and we're doing a better job of that, as we should be. Sometimes it's just a matter of not knowing, unfortunately, which is definitely not a reason, but sometimes that's what happens. In addition to that, we're continuing on with looking at the additional metrics for Goal 1 here. As of December 2023, grades 3 through 5, 100% there. Should put my glasses back on, I will in a minute. Okay, a few more actions here that we were looking at, just kind of a breakdown of some funds that we're focused in on with regards to recruitment, which is particularly, of course, important because we're trying to be sure that we have a stable staff to support what it is we're trying to do. And we had some intentional things that we were trying to recruit for, and so we've been able to do a pretty good job with that. Goal number 2, this is with regards to instructions and kind of preparing our students for what's going to come next. And so with that, this is, you'll see that as of this time, we have had the hour of code. I was hoping Jonathan was going to be able to be here for this, but we did push out some supports to our schools. A lot of them had activities and did some of that work. Not all engaged to the same degree, but opportunities are there, and they kind of present that to classrooms and students. Some of them do things through the library. So there's a lot of different ways by which they're able to access that opportunity. We'll probably have a little bit more detail about that later, but information has been provided to schools, and many of them do access, but in different ways. This is some of the data that we've kind of been talking about. You'll see off to the left where it talks about an update was made in May regarding our students with disabilities. I think one of you potentially had a question about that. So when we provided our mid-year update, you are not seeing that particular element because it was actually made a decision because we were already kind of meeting that. And then we remeasured and re-looking at that as a part of our outcome data with regards to our state testing and also our benchmark testing. Goal 2 action here. This was about school libraries, and the reason what we focused in on is we changed hours of some of our library resource specialists. So that was one thing that we did that afforded us to be able to be sure that students could access the library more often, and also at times when it made sense for them. Some do some things a little bit before school, depending on the site. Some extend. There's opportunities during the school day. So those libraries are being used, and we're looking at new ways by which to make it a little bit more of the beat of our campuses, but we have made some progress in that area. And through some of the various author visits this year and other ways. So just really trying to ramp up the utilization of our libraries and create that as spaces that all students feel like it's an access and a place that they want to be. Goal number 3 is around our social emotional learning and competencies and serving our whole child. We didn't emphasize all of this, but I was very pleased to see some of the data with regards to our absenteeism. As you know, we had done such a good job with that, and through the pandemic kind of lost some of that momentum. So it's good to see that we're making some strides and improving in this particular area. We definitely still have work to do. One of the things that we were identified for as a part of this process is we assisted, get the ATSI, but basically targeted assistance for attendance. And we were identified, and in particular, what was coming up for that identification was students who are chronically absent, either whether Hispanics or students with disabilities or who were 2 or more races at, I think it's 4 of our school sites. So the attendance rate was a very critical thing, and we continue to work on that. I do want to report, and I don't think it was in here because it's not a direct part of the LCAP, but with that, we were part of a work group last year to focus in on our attendance, and at this point, we have basically don't have to do that level of intensity around our attendance anymore. So that's very positive to see that the work that the teams have been doing is actually working to improve that attendance across the district. We talked a little bit earlier, a little bit about suspension rate in general, but I would say overall, we're doing much better with regards to some of our more significant populations, like our foster youth. In particular, looking at some of the numbers for our low-income students, we still have some challenges there, as you can see, but overall, we are making some improvements and doing a better job. And we definitely have some identified areas that we need to work on with regards to our Hispanic population.
African American.
Oh, yes, that too. I didn't.
But there's fewer students.
Yes, exactly. So improvements are being made, but it's still an area, oops, back that up. It's still an area of emphasis for us. This slide kind of breaks down a little bit where we were talking about earlier with regards to the referral rate. And so the way we look at this is per 100 students, like how many referrals are actually happening in a classroom. And so what we're looking at there is when it rises to a level that the teacher can't work on within the classroom. So this is what's coming outside of the classroom when we talk about this referral data. And so we are seeing some improvements in that area. And so that's positive. There's definitely some areas where we still have a challenge, and we continue to work on that, especially as it has to do with our Black and Brown students. We continue to work with our PBIS. One of the things as a part of that, there's a fidelity inventory, and that's kind of what we use so we can have a more stabilized way to measure how we're doing. One of our goals was to be sure we're assessing our performance at each school and also just being sure it's being implemented at each school, and we're doing a better job with that. Our goal is to be 10 by 10 at the end of this school year, and our hopes is that we will be there with regards to implementing at a level of fidelity that makes that climate on the campus be that much more successful. So that's what we're looking to do. And then you'll see here with regards to our panorama survey, we had 58% of our elementary and 56% of our middle school students reported feeling connected to an adult at their school. Of course, we want that number to go up, but it's good to see that more students are feeling like they are connected than not. And when we have that, we can build upon that and grow. Community partnerships. We've started our implementation with this. We're right at the time of the year, actually, when surveys will start going out on some of our major partnerships. And what we've been trying to do, and based upon feedback that we've gotten, is if we have these large partnerships, we need to see how they're going at about this time. So if we have any problems with those, we can make some adjustments. I will state that like we have those challenges, some of our partnerships are having staffing challenges, one with finding them and also with keeping them because it's very competitive to keep the competent staff. And so the cost in order to employ them has been a challenge for some of our partners. Culturally responsive teaching, our equity curriculum. We continue to use the second steps, and it has been helpful. One of the things we're doing with regards to that is we're assessing if that's the program that we should continue using next school year. Teachers who actually use the program find it very beneficial, it's very helpful, but the challenge we have is not all of our teachers find it as friendly for how they want to teach. So we're assessing, is it the program, is it us, is additional coaching needed, what's actually needed, and as we move forward. So we'll carry through this year with our goals, but as we look to next school year, we're trying to make a determination if this is the right program for us or not. And then goal 4, which we've talked about quite a bit this evening, but fostering a welcome and inclusive environment for our parents, families, and community members. We have some positive data in this area as well with regards to parent education programs that are being offered. We continue to get very positive feedback on programs that we offer. We do have a very diverse group that shows up. We do have interpreting services that are available at all of those meetings. And we do offer childcare when parents indicate as a part of their RSVP that they need and want that. So we will coordinate that and make that available. And just as a big note on that, on one of those strategic planning nights, I think we had more kids than we had adults almost for a session. But it was good to see that because that let parents be in the space and be able to be fully present as a part of those opportunities to hear their voices. So that's really positive. And then the other, just kind of the opportunities, we have had district opportunity this year. Some of those are listed. I think we have 3 more that are planned this year, and the next major one would be the one we talked about earlier regarding reading and support of academics at the home. These are some additional metrics that we kind of use to see how we're doing. The survey in the fall had 95% of our families reported feeling valued in the school. That continues to be favorable. And then also the overall family response rate increased to 20.7%. And I know we want to see a larger one, but the reality is for surveys, it's more difficult, which is why we try to use other ways by which to get our voices. And that happens much more effectively at the local level. So we continue to do that both ways because we think both bits of information informs our practice. And then our annual Equity Summit. Again, just to kind of talk about the work we've done this year, we feel it's been very beneficial. We've learned a lot about our families. They come out, they do great things. I think you had a chance in the engagement workshop, I think that was last month, to hear a little bit about what's happening. But I just think in this time tonight, if this can work, just see a little celebration. Can you turn the volume up?
You have to stop sharing.
Well, anyway, it was just so wonderful to observe. And I just felt like this late at night, seeing our kids thrive, the space was full and it was raining very hard that night. And I can tell you that the entire Bishop Auditorium was full. So I said that to say that families do feel engaged for the things that are important to them. Not sure what happened there. There we go. So families are feeling connected and engaged in the ways that they want to, and that's really important. I feel like some of the changes we've made this year have been helpful around communications. We've added some additional agencies, so we have more opportunities for interpreters and translations. So we expanded that. We expanded, like I said, the use of Language Line, which allows a conversation to happen immediately in a space for people who need it. And that's been helpful. The feedback that we've received has been very positive. And we collect that on an ongoing basis because we're always trying to figure out what's working, what's not working. And so sometimes we do get a few languages for translation that are really difficult to find, but I'm pleased to say that this year there's not been one request for translation services that we have not been able to fulfill. And so that's been for 504s, that's been for SSTs, and that's also been for IEP documents. And so we've been able to complete those. And then lastly, our focus on accelerated learning outcomes for our English language learners. Our big focus as a district, just continuing to emphasize the work that we need to do. We definitely are not where we need to be. We've spent a lot of time to speak to that. And really from a qualitative, maybe not a data number, is really around our capacity, knowing how to teach English language development skills throughout the day, becoming more familiar with some of the tools that we've shifted in. We need to increase our competencies. And so we can see some of the challenges that we had. We've come up with some solutions to those, but now it's a matter of us improving and learning to utilize them more effectively. So this last one is with regards to proficiency levels, and the number of students who were reclassified at this point. I am very hopeful that that number, we're gonna meet our desired outcome, and I'm hopeful that that's gonna be met this year based upon the feedback that we're receiving. Too early to say, but we're right in the midst of that testing as we speak. So we'll see where we are at the end of this school year, but we're definitely moving in the right direction, and I hope we will begin to see the fruit of the labor. And so as we move forward, some of the next steps for us, 100% of our 6th through 8th grade self-contained classrooms have supplemental materials. So this is kind of where we are. We've confirmed no bias AI is present with software in our hiring process, which is really positive. We want to be sure that we're giving equitable opportunities for staff who are people who are applying for our positions, that we're having an opportunity to diversify our staff, and that our systems are not in any way prohibiting them from applying or being successful as a part of the process. So we're pleased about that. And then these are some of the other data points that we continue to look at. We've made some improvement. Chronic absenteeism has decreased, and we've increased the number of extended learning opportunities for students, and in particular, our students who are most in need of those particular services. So we're pleased about that. We continue to focus on the lingering challenges in English and math. And I know we talked about a lot of elements earlier in our discussion tonight, but in being just kind of bringing in the strategic planning work that we're doing, what has been benefit to me and being in all of those spaces is that while we talk about a lot of different things and families talk about that after school, what we're going to do about this and that, what they really were talking about is support me in helping my child to read and do mathematics. I mean, that has come up in all kinds of ways, but at the end of the day, that's what parents are telling us, and we're hearing in some of those meetings. And so with that, we continue to have challenges. We feel like we're making steps. I think we're more cohesive, at least in the work that we understand we need to do, and some approaches by which to do that. I just want to acknowledge how much I appreciate the hard work of everyone in the district, our employees, the support they've provided, our parents, and just being resilient to do the work and support our students. So it's not the data we want to see at this time, but it is data that is encouraging that we should do better when we have this conversation, we're hoping later this year. And with that, I'll take any questions if there are any.
We are very grateful for the work and for food over here. This is the sum of all the stuff that we are doing over the years, and you've been doing over the years that we've been asking. And we're very grateful for this. It's showing the intent and the heart of our community.
Yes.
Thank you. And with that, we want to open the questions from the community. If we have anyone who wishes to speak or have any questions online, may raise your hand right now. This is the time for questions on item, I think it's 9A in our agenda. Okay, seeing that there is no community member who wants to speak or have any questions related to this item, we can move to our board. Yeah?
We can't hear you, microphone.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. So again, then let's open online. If we have any member in our community who wish to speak about this particular item 9A in our agenda, have any questions or comments, please, is the moment to do it. Please raise your electronic hand and be part of our meeting tonight. Seeing none, thank you. And we move forward with the board. For any questions, comments, inquiries, etc. related to this, please. Is your time? Who wants to start?
My questions were answered in packet review, so yeah.
Yeah, and I think most of mine were part of the Hispanic thing at the target, yes.
Michelle, was yours number 9? Was yours number 9 our code, or was that Isabel, or?
What's the
I'm just
question?
asking, well, so was it about the hour of code, or was that somebody, I don't know whose that
I don't
was?
think that was me, alright.
Done at each school.
Oh, hour code, yeah.
Hour of code, and how they, okay, so that was kind of interesting to me because, you know, and looking at the next steps, because, one thing so the question in the packet review, that, it's not my question, I thought it was good though, said for goal 2 related to STEM, the outcome is the hour of code was done at each site, additional event data is currently being collected. How do we maybe change the desired outcome to say something like all students will be offered STEM programming unless the whole school is participating in something like hour of code, then only a few students at the site are benefiting from it. Happy to explain more. And then the district's answer was, this is a definite area that we will investigate as we contemplate the new LCAP goals and strategic planning outcomes. 2 years ago, when the LCAP was adopted, we wanted to include hour of code as a one touch point for the district to develop an interest in computer science. So the district is asking then, we would love to dig a bit deeper into the interest behind this so we can plan appropriately moving forward. And, you know, I think that, like for me, when I read this like little conversation, question, response, question, you know, it really made me think that I've had conversations with parents who their kids have recently gone to high school. They've been they went all the way through TK or K through 8th grade in our district. And then they get to high school and their kids, for whatever reasons, do not feel like they were that challenged in our middle schools. And like, I get it. Lots of people like who've been we've had this conversation before, Reed and Michelle and other people have said, my kids were fine. My kids went into middle school 3 or 4 years advanced, you know, even more like academically, and they came out with exactly the same scores at the end. They just kind of coasted their way through middle school and they got a little bored, you know? And they like, okay, again, it's like, Ethan will not appreciate me saying this, but you know, I would say, Ethan would come home and I would say, what'd you write? Show me your paper, what'd you write? I'm so excited, it sounds so interesting. He's like, oh, they just said, just write a couple sentences, you know, like, I'm good. And I'm like, they weren't talking to you. They were talking to someone who just got here. Like they're encouraging people who are like, you know, like, come on, like push yourself. So it would just be great. Like, I know we have like advanced math, but when the kids got to high school, as these other parents who I talked to just in the last couple weeks, like at other events, they're like, yeah, my kid got to high school and like, they found out that what we call advanced math in other districts is just called math. It's just math. Like everyone gets advanced math. And it really puts them into a level where they're able to take those advanced mathematics classes in high school. So I said, well, what'd you do? Because they weren't gonna let their kids coast. They were like, my kids were like they did their own thing. So it's fine. But they were like, no, we got them into private math tutoring. They went to math camp, they went to math school, and they got their advanced math in other places. So that's all well and good, but if we're thinking about like how our curriculum is gonna prepare kids, you know, we talk about we're just getting kids promoted to high school, we're not creating graduates, but if we're setting them up so that they, you know, like how are we setting them up for success for when they get to high school so that they can go on and do what they want to do and take those higher level classes. So I think as we're looking at math, maybe it's not just how to get everyone up to basic, but like how do we get to the next level? And this conversation in the packet sparked that for me because what I've heard from other districts is they do it by bringing in more STEM activities, bringing in more hands-on, more opportunities to really work with things. I get it that some parents don't want technology, they're like, there's too much focus on that, but it is a way of like really engaging the kids, and I'm not just saying throw them on iPads, like for the record. So anyway, like, is there a conversation happening at the district as you're looking at the, like, math, for example, for how it connects to high school and beyond?
Can I add to that? I think last week, a few weeks ago when we were doing the strategic plan thing, there was the consultant was summarizing data that they had collected during the sessions, and one of the complaints had been that if a student is proficient, there's not a path to mastery beyond that. And I think I would really like clarity on our path to mastery, on what is offered to kids who, like Ethan, maybe wasn't challenged enough. And I know that my very, very literal son, if told to write a couple sentences, would write 2 sentences. And I know that he could do more than that. Like, I have a neighbor whose child graduated from our schools and is now at Fremont, and he is in Calc BC now as a sophomore, which is not the path that we offer and not a normal path for even most students. And what she told me was that he had to do it on his own. Like, he had to like try to teach himself math. And I feel like there are families who are able to help him learn that, to get to Calc BC or to hire a tutor. But also, I know there are families that aren't, and I just want to make sure that we provide access for those families to these kids who are capable of advancing that far, that quickly.
I'm just gonna throw in, this goes to a whole deeper discussion really of math. Like when you said that, I think most kids shouldn't even be, like a philosophical level, I don't think most sophomores should be taking that class.
Right.
So I mean, this goes a whole deeper philosophical math discussion that we don't wanna have right now.
Maybe that's a different study session, yeah.
To bring it back full circle.
And that makes a lot of sense. Like, when my kids came from Fairwood, and they were many years ahead in everything, in math, in lecture, in reading and writing, they kind of level up in middle school. They also write it. They just, and they were dealing with being teens and other stuff. So I suppose it was okay. But I don't know if there is a way to do a challenging path for that. And I'm saying, for example, we are doing great now that we are doing juntas. We are extending it to middle school. Maybe there are other options to extend other programs to middle school and to, help kids succeed or keep succeeding after they come out of elementary.
So to bring it back to our earlier discussion, to bring it back to our earlier discussion, it appears that one of the themes is highlighting math, science rich environments, and how do we build that? And if we build that for every child, it expands opportunities for those who want to go to super higher other, and it invites parents to be able to build their capacity or see other pathways for the kids to build that bigger, deeper higher. So I think if you focus in on math literacy and math rich environments, science rich environments with intentionality in this next LCAP, we'll achieve that goal. And I think that's what essentially we're saying. We want math, science rich environments for all of our kids.
Yeah, and
Neuroscience is
Aileen
what
was
it
saying
means,
it
right?
before, like the part about hands-on, that's why it made me connect with the Explorer program. That if you have more enrichment opportunities for the kids, it make it, you can make it fun and we can make it.
And back to
the kids
And
be
back
more
to your,
effective.
engagement in middle school, perhaps it's not that sports club that we need to be inviting kids to participate in as an only choice. Maybe there are other clubs that could continue that math-rich environment, stimulating opportunity that they could feel more engaged in than being athletically inclined.
Chess.
Okay.
And the simple answer to that is those are the ideas that we're hoping through our next phase of the LCAP and strategic planning that we'll look at. And I will say that maybe not the explicit use even around math and science, even though I know that was the question, but actually it's the richness actually academically across all our academic areas. So that is a theme that's coming up in meeting to meeting, no matter who's in it, on how do we do that and how do we do it effectively. But not just for proficiency, but also for acceleration for students who need and want that. So I would say, yes, those are things we're looking at, and how do we structure it to be able to do it? And then the other piece that we are doing to kind of bring some of that, just to speak to that, is as we've been assessing the after-school programs, we've been bringing additional resources like that into those programs around some of the STEM elements, the arts, and the physical. So when we Paul and I assess what should we have as a staple across that. It was to have some type of physical activity, some type of performing arts, and some type of academics. Like that should be core across all of our campuses so that everyone has an opportunity to assess. And then what would be unique from campus to campus will be based upon what the student population and parents said they want to see on those campuses. So there would be core, and then there would be differentiation based upon what the student body wants to participate in. So that's kind of how we're approaching the after school portion.
I had a question about the arts. So you said, I mean, I heard the STEM part, I didn't hear the STEAM part. And I was wondering if the funding for the arts, which allegedly there was going to be some additional funding for the arts.
That new measure.
Yeah, the new measure, but then they took it away from somewhere else or something like that, like it's a whole big money thing. But is there a way to put that, like to access that for the LCAP, like for these kids, for these programs, or?
Yeah, as a part of this process, once we get a better sense of, because there's kind of three buckets. The one bucket is there's certain things we have to do because it's compliance. Then the next bucket is around what funding resources do we have and what are the rules and regulations around that. And then over here is what is everything tell us we really needed and what to do. And so in looking at all those three buckets, what we're trying to do is say, okay, how do we blend these resources in order to meet the need across all the campuses, right? We also have some grants that we're working on to write, and hopefully those get funded. So blending of our resources is going to be our most effective way by which to do that. That's one, to keep us fiscally solvent, but the other is to be sure we're programmatically balanced. So we don't have inequities across our district, so that everyone has an opportunity to access the things that are most important to them, but then also what's necessary. So we've been trying to look at programming in both ways. What do I need to have and what do I actually want? And we're hoping by giving a little bit more of what students want, whether it be during the school day or after school, that will excite them to be better learners. And so those are some of the elements that we're trying to incorporate.
Okay, do we have any more? Related to this item?
We have about 15 minutes to complete the meeting.
Okay, so, well, we can vote about it at 9:25 if we see necessary, but
There's not
probably
much
won't. So the next, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we can then move to the next item in the agenda, which is review and action, and is 10A, acceptance and award of fees replacement for walk-in freezer at the MOT yard project. And for that, Director of Facilities, Brad Burns, please.
All right, good evening. Good to see you all again. So January 16th, we opened bids to complete the freezer project over in the MOT. That project also includes the EV infrastructure upgrade for the 2 electrical buses that will be forthcoming. We had 3 prospective bidders bid that project. We had Fuse Service, we had 101 Builders, and we had Garrett Construction Group. At the time of bid opening, Fuse Service was the apparent low bidder, followed in second place by 101 Builders, and third was Garrett Construction Group. You have all the values listed in front of you in case you want to reference them. Due to a non-responsive bid from Fuse Service, we are recommending that we reject Fuse Service's proposal as the low bidder for this project, and then award the contract to the lowest responsible bidder of 101 Builders.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Now we need to start with public comments. So now is the time for public comment on this particular item. Please raise your hand feature online if you would like to make a comment. And this is the time for item number 9, 10 in our agenda. Please raise your hand now. Okay, seeing none, then we move forward
There is a
with.
raised hand.
Huh?
There is a raised hand.
Oh, there is one raised hand. Oh, perfect. So please state your name and affiliation to start with, and you will have 3 minutes to comment on this particular item. Thank you for being here tonight.
We have Sergey Luskin.
Perfect. Please, Sergey, start your comment. You have 3 minutes, and it will appear on the screen.
Hello, did you hear me?
Yes.
I am president of Fuse Service, and I would like to ask district, what does it mean non-responsive bidder? Because when we are fill out a document with which district provide to us, there was a line that calls alternate line, and we fill out this line because line was in the documents. And also when we are take a look at whole bid documents, we did not find what doesn't mean non-responsive. And could district please explain us what doesn't mean, and where is we can find information why, if we put numbers in alternate, why it means we are not responsive.
Okay, thank you for your question, comment. District?
So let's close public comment.
Okay,
And then
so let's put with this, if there are no other members of the public who want to speak now, then we can close comment and then we can talk about the district. Thank you very much. And with this, now we have questions from the board or the superintendent or comments related to this item.
Bram, I don't know if you'd like to make any comment about the unresponsive bid.
Yeah, of course. So Sergey, the alternate bid that you are referring to, the line item in our bid form, is included just as a boilerplate template. Nowhere in the bid documents did it call for or ask for an alternate bid pricing. The fact that you responded to that and put a number there gives you an unfair competitive advantage to the other bidders, because you get to open the bids, they get to see them all, and we don't know really how to classify the $150,000 alternate bid as part of the project scope. So to answer your question in short, the fact that you included a bid alternate at all when it was not asked for deems your proposal unresponsive.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment or?
You can ask for a motion.
Okay, with this, we close the part about the questions. If we have a motion from the board
on this item?
Yeah, I move that the Board of Education reject the bid from Fuse Service Incorporated, and that we accept the receipt of all other bids, awarding the contract to the lowest responsive and responsible conforming bid from 101 Builders Incorporated, and grant authorization to execute the agreements relative to the replacement of the walk-in freezer at the MOT yard project.
Good, do we have a second? Huh?
I'll second.
Okay. Yeah, are there any comments that are not about the questions, clarifying questions, any more comments regarding this on the board?
I have a question. So when people are filling out, going through the bid process, can they, if they have a question, like if they're unsure, can they reach out to the district office and ask a question or kind of check things first?
Yeah, so it's a great question. Yeah, so anytime that we put out a bid or project, there's a time for pre-bid RFIs, so we give a duration of 10 days in most cases, sometimes 15, for any contractor to ask any sort of clarifying questions about the proposal, the specifications, or the project in general.
But it has to happen in that window. Once that window closes,
Correct.
to make it equal playing field,
Yep.
there's no communication until this very moment, right?
Correct.
Good. Okay, yeah,
I
I
have a
believe,
question.
yeah.
And did they reach out to you and ask any clarifying questions during
Not-
that time?
Not in regards to the bid form.
Okay. And is it like just a standard bid form that you use on most projects?
Correct, and the other two contractors put NA in that area.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's very clear, and then we also have an extended informational document from the lawyers why this makes sense for us to make a decision. And I think it's very typical from construction bids. Need to follow very particular legal rules, and we cannot move away from those. Okay? With that, let's vote. Everybody who wants to approve the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, with that, we have a unanimous vote. Thank you, board, for that. And we're gonna do very quickly consent
Thank you,
agenda
Brad.
items.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you, Brand.
Of course.
With that, let's see. Any item on the consent agenda is subject to review and discussion prior to being approved by the board. If necessary, any item may be removed from a separate action. The public may address the board regarding any items on the consent agenda. So we do open the comments from the public. If they want to talk on any item on this consent agenda, please raise your hand now. Okay, seeing none, board, do you want to pull any items from this, or you want to approve as it is? Do we have a motion?
I move approval of the consent agenda as listed.
I'll second that.
Okay, with that, do we have a vote? Are we ready to vote? No questions? Okay, so let's vote on approve the agenda. Everybody please say aye. Aye, with that, we approve the agenda. And with that, I would like to propose, just in case, this is gonna be very fast, but we have less than 5 minutes. We need by our own rules to extend our meeting, because we're gonna finish in 5 and we haven't done any comments from the board or superintendent. So I will propose, I think it's just gonna take 10 minutes more.
I'm happy to skip
but-
I think we can get
I
started.
think I can send in my comments.
I think we're good.
You wanna
finish in
send your
5.
comments?
We wanna finish in 5.
You wanna finish in 5?
Yeah.
We had 7 minutes when we started talking about this.
Let's go.
Let's go.
You're 6.
Okay, okay, so then let's not move forward. We have 8 minutes. Sorry, we have no 8 minutes, we have 5 minutes,
Scott
and
Nancy.
it's the number 5? No, it's number 7. Well, whatever the item it is, we are doing board comments.
for me.
Number four.
Number four.
Start with Nancy.
Okay, Nancy?
I said that I would send in my comments and I defer my time I'd rather hear from the superintendent if he has any important updates to give us.
Okay, you too?
I'm good, I don't have anything super critical to share.
Okay.
I want to share about Lakewood's board office hours real quick. We went. Is it? Oh, it's not. Lakewood board office hours, I went the Friday after our last board meeting with Isa and Mike. There was some confusion over KLAS eligibility amongst the new TK families. There was some concern about the behavioral intervention training for the vendor there, for Catalyst. There were some complaints about whether or not they had training there. And there were some complaints about the cars and the traffic at drop-off, which will hopefully be addressed by the Safe Routes to School grant from the state for that neighborhood. But we also discussed how Lakewood's drop-off is going to be pretty crazy when the library is being built this summer and the park is being revamped this fall. And then I'll send my activities to Jesus.
I sent my activities to Jesus already, but I wanted to let the other trustees know that I found out today that on March 7th at 4 p.m., I will also send you an email, but there's gonna be a site tour open to any, and district people too, for Mountain View Wisdom School District's new staff housing. So it's teachers and staff, and it's not occupied yet, it's gonna be at 4 p.m. And they're just waiting on the parking lot for occupancy. But it's open to all SCC SBA members and all district people if you wanna look at some staff housing. Next door, nearby.
Okay, well, it's been actually very busy and I will have a lot to span and talk about, but it will be another day. Among those I did find, but I will then share next time twice as much. I did find a lot of new programs and a lot of things that I've been going. For example, I went to CineQuest and CineQuest event yesterday. I was talking with the owner of CineQuest and he was telling me a lot of opportunities with movies, movie program for underserved population that we have. I think this is very similar to the one that we wanted to check last year that we didn't, I think in the last 2 years. There is another opportunity. It's also, in this case, it's free because they will put all the money for that. They will pay for that. They will just come and do it for us. And they have all the data of why it's awesome to work with this creativity, so it's just there on the table if you want to use it. Other stuff that is there on the table if you want to use it. Today I went to an event, part of CALSA, and it's the Adobe Creativity Suite, which they also give for free to the schools, and this give a lot of new STEM and STEAM opportunities to the kids from, they can use it to make podcasts, graphic designs, coding and all sort of things, and it's another tool that is free for schools, school district, and that will be great to talk more about it if you want to use it or not. It will be a great opportunity. Again, it's something free that we could use. I talked with another people today at CALSA in one of the forums, and it was about air quality, which has been coming a lot. So they can also, it's a non-profit that they do free assessments for the schools, indoor and outdoor, with air quality. And after they do the assessment, if they need anything to be fixed or replaced, they have a bank of companies that will do it. And they also have another pot of non-profit and grant money to do it for free. So this is called IQ Air. And they work with, and I have a lot of material from them, and they come, they do the free testing, and they give the free whatever we need. They find the money, and they do the whole thing from beginning to end. Well, with this, I found like other 4 or 5 things that are either free or almost free for us, and related with STEAM, with development, language development, EL programs, some things that I found about other people who can give us after school software and programs for kids with ELs and multicultural. But then we'll talk about it next week or next, I don't know, in a month when we come back because we're gonna have the governance.
Well, I think
Mike?
you also could just share all that information with Mike and he can.
And I'll include my comments in the weekend update, so we're done.
Yay.
Thank you with that. We're going to the last item, which is 12 future meetings. And the next meeting is gonna be Thursday, February 13 at 9:15 a.m. and it's gonna be a special board meeting.
That was Tuesday, not Thursday.
No, Thursday is Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Oh, Tuesday.
Typo.
Okay, Tuesday, February 13, and there's a typo in the agenda, sorry about that. Thank you. Happy birthday. Oh, and we want to thank very much our wonderful translators for being here until late and hope to see you soon. Bye.
Gracias.